What's going on? 6 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Monday Night Football. Baker Mayfield and the Bucs take the Chiefs to the limit, but don't even get a chance to touch the ball in overtime as the Chiefs take it 30-24. DeAndre Hopkins had a night, catching 8 passes for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. Chiefs remain undefeated, while the Bucs fall to 4-5. Happy trade deadline day to those who celebrate. Yesterday, the Broncos getting an early start, sending outside linebacker Baron Browning to the Cardinals for a 6th-round pick, but some more trades are expected today. Any trade must be completed before 3 p.m. Central Time. Today, some Titans that have been speculated on being shipped away: Arden Key, Harold Landry, and Sebastian Joseph Day, just to name a few. But we'll keep you up to date on any trades that happen throughout the day. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Kicking off your Tuesday morning, RKW, Ramon, Kayla, and Will on a beautiful morning in Music City, USA. Brad Hopkins is here, filling in for the big ragu, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, myself, Will Bowling, present and accounted for. The number 615-737-1045. Wrapping up the NFL weekend, looking ahead to another busy Saturday of college football, a little bit of Vols, a little bit of Titans quarterback discussion coming up this morning. How we doing?
We're good. Yeah, we've had a lot of stuff going on last night. I feel like besides Monday Night Football, if you stayed up late to watch that, we had hoops going on. I know, Will, you had the Belmont game. I don't know, Brad, what you love to watch this time of year, because there's a little bit of everything going on.
Game Show Channel.
Game Show Channel.
Yeah, really.
There
Can't
you
get enough
go.
of it.
Switching it up.
Beat the Bridge, you name it. I'm all for it.
I
What
love
is your,
it.
give me your top 3 games played on said channel.
Deal or No Deal.
Mm-hmm.
What's the one with the whammy?
Oh.
Price is Right?
No.
That pyramid?
No, the whammy comes across this little animated character and takes all your money whenever you
That was
make a
called?
wrong.
Press Your Luck.
Press Your
There
Luck.
it is.
That's
Yes.
it. Press Your Luck is one, and I always watch Wheel of Fortune, of course.
Of course. OG.
Old school. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you guys something. Are you guys happy for DeAndre Hopkins? I am.
Why not?
Yeah, I think I'm more so of a Derrick Henry. Like, I'm very happy for Derrick Henry and what he's doing. I guess I didn't cover DeAndre long enough to kind of really know who the heck DeAndre Hopkins was. So I mean, good for him, you know. And if he goes to the Super Bowl and plays a certain amount of snaps, the Titans get a 4th-round pick for that. I'm happy. Yeah, I have no problem with it.
Matter of fact, Blaine and I were sharing that in the pregame, the countdown to kickoff yesterday.
Yeah.
Or on Sunday, rather, that both Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins could play each other in an AFC championship
That's wild.
game. That would be kind of wild.
I don't know if I'm really like going out of my way to be happy for him. I'm just kind of indifferent. Just kind of a thing that happened.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just whenever you see a dude, now I would say the difference would be Derrick Henry was homegrown. Yeah, he's our
yes.
dude. We drafted him.
8 seasons here.
He spent some time here. You know, he cemented a legacy here. DeAndre Hopkins already came in with some cachet. We already knew who he was. He was a star before he came here. But still, he was a contributor and a vocal voice. A vocal voice. Would there be anything else? But he was a voice in that locker room, right? That kind of got people moving in the right direction and stuff. I'm just happy for him.
Yeah, it was interesting last night. I think it was, I can't even remember who called it, but was saying that, I think it was Peyton Manning, actually, in the Manning cast before when he did his preview, was saying that there was going to be that connection last night. And sure enough, 2 touchdowns for DeAndre Hopkins. So he was balling.
30-24, the Chiefs get the win last night. We're just going to keep doing this thing with the Chiefs, aren't we? Where we say, well, they're not really what they're supposed to be.
Sure.
You know, they're not at their full strength. They're 8-0.
Mm-hmm. And that's hard to do, especially in this day and age in the NFL. We see it on any given Sunday, right? That any team can upset another team, and they shouldn't. And so for the Kansas City Chiefs to still be able to get it done, in the end, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look great or if there's mistakes. They find a way to overcome them and win games. It's pretty crazy to me.
I think we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Why? Because 3 championships in a row has never happened in the NFL. And here we are looking at a team that could possibly do it. Ain't no way they could do it, but they're undefeated and they find a way to win, despite it being in overtime against a 4-4 team led by Baker Mayfield, who's having an exceptional year himself,
Yeah.
So it just kind of shows you, man. I mean, chemistry and all that stuff, it really does matter because if you find the right place that supports you and you put some, and he doesn't even have like a full roster of studs to be working with. Mike Evans is not in the lineup. There's a bunch of Godwin's not in the lineup.
Godwin's out. Yeah,
exactly.
He's out for the season.
So he's working with some dudes, and he's just making a game of it.
615-737-1045 is our number. It is NFL trade deadline day. Do you think the Titans make any moves today?
Man, you know what? To make a move would mean someone of significance gets to go someplace else. And then at that point, what are we saying? Are we trying to get the first pick of the draft? Are we trying to jump Carolina?
You're preparing for the future.
Okay, so and doing that, preparing for the future. And to get what? To line up another quarterback?
Give me all the picks.
Okay, in this year's draft, I'm not seeing anybody that
not
stands
necessarily
out.
for quarterback. Yeah. You got more needs than just quarterback.
I'm just talking about in any position. I mean, name somebody that's so relevant right now that you really want to do so much to position yourself and grab that draft equity like you talked about, Will.
Harold
that's going to make a
Landry,
difference.
Arden Key.
I'm talking about in college. That's going to come here and make a difference.
Well, I mean,
that's
there's that. I don't think that's how it works, though, right? Like you've got 5th, 6th round talents that are going to be out there that. We've heard that this is one of the deepest drafts in a long time because all the COVID years are up.
I would say this, and I think that Quandre Diggs would have maybe been somebody, too, that they would have thought about trading because, again, 1-year deal type of situation, had been playing good football up until he got hurt on Sunday. Unfortunately, now on IR, out for the rest of the season. He was a guy that I could think about, okay, if you could get something for him. Because, again, they have made it known that they want to build a foundation here. And that means getting as many draft picks as they can get. Right now, they currently have 8. So I could see if they would maybe have gotten something for him and they would have done it just because they don't have a long-term attachment to him. And then I could see that maybe with an Arden Key type of situation. And the only reason why Arden Key would even get looked at right now is because he's been playing really good football. And it is always a look at, what have you done for me lately when it comes to this league? And so maybe a team sees that really has a need for a pass rusher and is willing to give a certain pick that the Titans are okay with. Other than that, I just don't think any long-term guys that are kind of still the future of this team, I don't see them trading at this point.
What type of coaching staff is this? Is this the type of coaching staff that wants to develop talent? In other words, using these draft picks and all of a sudden developing them into something that is respectable, that might even be a star in the future? Or are they guys that like to facilitate, use the talent that already exists from guys that are already established? Are you stroking a check to get somebody in that's newsworthy and notable that you have an expectation for? Or are you going to do like every single year we do in the draft, roll the dice, and hopefully one of these guys really makes good? I mean, from top to bottom, whether it's a first-round pick or a fourth-round pick, you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, you think Chicago Bears were grabbing Caleb Williams thinking, hope we're mediocre. No, they were thinking that this is going to be a difference at some point in time. And as a matter of fact, it's probably going to cost Matt Eberflus his job the way that this thing isn't going, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw the New Orleans Saints check out of Dennis Allen yesterday.
Yeah.
So you don't really know what you're going to get. Well, I kind of hope you do.
Long-term sustainability always will be helped by developing talent. If you want something to be sustainable for a decade, you develop players. You don't just keep buying them, keep taking someone else's picks. Because you can draft more to an identity than you can, give checks out to an identity of what you want your franchise to be.
And I think what we have seen, at least this is my opinion, and everybody has their own on this. I do like what I've seen from Rand's draft in the last 2 seasons for the most part. It hasn't been perfect, but I do like the ability that I've seen from them and how they've developed up to this point. And again, there's not a huge sample size, but if he can continue to find those 5th, 6th rounders and they can be utilized early on, even in their career, like a lot of them have, then to me, they're hitting something there.
Yeah, sometimes it just takes a while to get that engine warmed up, right?
Sure.
We've got a whole left side of the offensive line that could be Pro Bowlers here in the next 3 or 4 years, right? Perennial guys. But right now, they're learning. They're learning how to play with each other. They're still learning the schematics of being an NFL player.
But a lot of them are playing.
Yeah, and they're playing to,
class.
I think it's respectable, at least on that left side. But, I mean, there's still some growing. Mm-hmm. And you have to weather those storms.
Titans, again, as they enter the trade deadline, have their own first and second round picks. They have 2 fourth-round picks, one of them from the Seattle Seahawks. Titans do not have a third because of the L'Jarius Sneed trade. 2 fifth-round picks, their own and Kansas City's for DeAndre Hopkins. That is conditional, would become a fourth if Kansas City makes the Super Bowl and Hopkins meets certain incentives. A sixth that is their own, and then a seventh from Green Bay in the Malik Willis trade. So no third, but again, you were able to get another fifth. If you had 3 fifths, you already had 2 fourths. At that point, if there was somebody in the third round that you really liked, you could then package some of those picks together. You could move up.
That's the other thing, right? Round. You can get a little bit more creative with it the more picks that you have. Yeah.
Yep. So not all just about, using all of those picks to get, 9, 10 players if they add 2 more picks, but you have additional flexibility if there is someone you feel like you have to have at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, it is early to be talking about the draft. And I know, we still got plenty of games left to go. But when it comes down to it, like this is a situation that this team is 2-6.
Yep.
And so you do have to have this conversation when it comes to the trade deadline, because if there are pieces that people are interested in that could help them, in their playoff run, then if it's a good enough trade or if it's good enough in terms of the draft pick they're going to give you back, you definitely have to think about it as a team.
Yeah, we're not doing draft talk. We're doing trade deadline talk.
Yeah.
There's a stark difference. We are on this show, we do not do off-season conversations until the offseason. We'll have plenty of time. We'll have months of debating the different quarterbacks and the different tackles and all the things. I think we said the word Joe Alt more so than we even said anyone else not named Will Levis.
Yeah, but I think the tie is obviously if you're trading away a talented player, what are you getting back? You're not getting another talented player. You're getting a draft pick. So that just makes it part of the conversation.
Coming up this morning, VolQuest Awesome Price joins us at 8:20. Ron Slay in hour 4 as always on our Tuesdays. And when we come back, there is something that I think is a concern to monitor for Tennessee football fans as the college football playoff rankings come out for the first time tonight. We'll talk about that next. Hey, it's Will Bowling. Is your heating system ready for the cold weather of winter? Well, available 24/7, 365, the professional Lee Company team is here to help. Their technicians will perform a 22-point inspection as well as seasonal cleaning and maintenance to keep your home running efficiently this fall and winter. And even better, they've got great deals for you, just like this one. You save $20 on your next heating tune-up visit today. That's $20 off on your home's next heating service. Just call Lee Company, 615-567-1000, or check out their website. It's great there, too, at leecompany.com for an appointment to keep your home's heating in check. That's $20 off on your home's next heating service when you call the folks at Lee Company, 615-567-1000. Trust the folks who have been trusted for 80 years here in Middle Tennessee, online at leecompany.com. That's Lee Company, all you need. Going to talk some college football to open up your Tuesday morning. RKW 104.5 The Zone. Brad Hopkins in for Ramon Foster. Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. But before we talk a little bit of college ball, let's go back to the phones where Jeremy is in Nashville talking Titans this morning. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yesterday you were talking about the upsides and the downsides of like putting Will Levis in back, for the rest of the remainder of this season, and I feel like that some of those things need to be done in order to, to see where they're at going forward. I mean, is there a future with Mason Rudolph short term next year? If there's nobody in the draft that they, have a good feeling about, to start solidifying some of those other positions, because there's so many holes on this team that need to be filled. And I feel like that even though this past draft was Rand's first one, as the full GM, I believe like this next coming one is going to be, very pivotal in them, rebuilding the foundation going forward to actually have a team worth going and watching that actually is competitive when they start to build that new stadium. But I just want to hear what you guys have to say about that. I'll talk to y'all later.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's a good point, Jeremy, in terms of you do really have to figure out what you have in terms of Will Levis. And I know it's kind of put a little bit of dent in the process because he's been hurt. So you haven't had those games, the full games, to really evaluate everything about him like they said they wanted to do. And then in turn, you put Mason Rudolph in, and right now, he's here for just this year. But again, do you want to keep him as maybe a backup next year and draft your guy, or do you want to not worry about drafting your guy next year and bring in, a guy that maybe like a Sam Darnold or something that has proven themselves, a little bit later in their career? So it's a really complicated situation, but when it's all said and done, as much as it kind of stinks to say this, you do kind of have to see what you have in Will Levis for the rest of the season. If he stays healthy, if he doesn't, it is what it is at that point.
Yeah, 2-6. I mean, there's no playoffs, I think, in this team's future, right? So you're not saving face by having a veteran or somebody else in here other than the draft equity that you had in the lineup to start the season. If Will Levis is healthy, you got to play him. You know why? Because you then answer any question you have about the quarterback position, and any move that you would need to make in the future is now flushed out. You know what I'm saying? Will Levis either has it, he has a future here, he's starting to understand the nuances of the quarterback position, he's starting to make strides, he's getting better. That's what you want to hear. Or the flip side, he's just not that guy. And then at that point, you already know, and you can check that mark. You can mark that check, whatever that thing is, and move on to the next thing if that's the case.
Sure.
Yeah, you absolutely could have Mason Rudolph be a bridge and be the equivalent of what Sam Darnold has been this year in Minnesota for a lot cheaper than what the actual Sam Darnold would cost.
Yeah.
I'm curious if Sam Darnold continues playing the way he does for Minnesota, if the Vikings want to get rid of J.J. McCarthy.
Ooh.
And he becomes the Trey Lance out there, and Sam Darnold is their Brock Purdy.
It's a really good point. And where did they get JJ? Was he obviously first round? But what pick?
I think it was 11, wasn't it?
Okay, yeah. So it wasn't even like a top 5 or anything.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, it's still you're top 15. It's pretty much the same thing.
I think what Kayla's saying is it one of those situations where you drafted the guy with the first 5 picks and it like really makes you look like you have egg on your face because it didn't work out, or was he just simply outplayed? This could be a very similar situation that they're dealing with in Indianapolis.
10th pick. Okay.
I mean, Joe Flacco, sure, he's 39 years old and doesn't look like he's going to be your quarterback for the next 3 or 4 years. But he definitely has outplayed Anthony Richardson. And this is more about what Shane Steichen did to keep this team at least relevant in the playoff conversation. Right. Because as upside down as the AFC South is, the Colts still have a chance.
Yeah.
So they're putting their best quarterback in, and their best quarterback right now happens to be an aging guy that won comeback player of the year last year. Shoot, there's a reason why Cleveland let him go. Because they didn't want to hear Flacco every 5 minutes once Deshaun Watson was stinking, right? Yeah. So, when you look at these young quarterbacks, you just never really know. But Sam Darnold, he's still got a lot of tread left on the tires.
Yeah.
So if he's going to be right, so if he's going to be your dude, you can go ahead and make that, consummate that marriage, and then maybe like we're talking about getting draft equity from somebody, Zach Wilson him.
Yeah. And one more thing with Jeremy, Will, that you brought up about, maybe even keeping Mason Rudolph as a bridge quarterback or whatever you decide to do. If you decide not to draft, there are so many things that you need that are a need. Like Jeremy said, you go get that wide receiver, you could get that right tackle, that cornerback. There are so many pass rusher. There are so many needs for this team. Maybe you go and really focus on that next draft and then get your quarterback. So
I was going to say, I mean, Joe Flacco will be available for you as well. He will be a free agent.
Yep.
Could bring him here.
Right. He'd just be making
possible.
a tour the last leg of his career,
That's
right?
No doubt. It is interesting, though. Sam Darnold is 2 years older than Will Levis.
Wow.
Been around a long
That's
time.
nuts.
He's 2 years older than Will Levis. I'm telling you, if they go on a run, they are not going away from Sam Darnold in Minnesota. They have
Kinda
no
hard
reason to.
It doesn't suck to have Justin Jefferson, probably the best receiver in the game.
Hawkinson's back.
Aaron Jones has shown the Packers, hey, this is what you're missing. So TJ Hawkinson.
And I love their head coach. I like Kevin O'Connell.
He's great.
O'Connell's a dude, man.
And they got a defense.
He's a dude.
They got a great defense, too.
I sat on the bus with Kevin O'Connell right after the Rams won the Super Bowl, and we just chopping it up, like having a beer after they won the dang thing, and just sitting there talking to him.
He looks so young. He looks like he could be a player.
He's
still.
just a guy, man. He's a guy that people like playing for. Kind of like, it reminds me of Dan Campbell as far as that feel of a dude that's in the locker room with you that, is not your a teammate, but he kind of gives you that feel, like a big brother. You know what I mean?
That's a good way to describe it.
So tonight, the college football playoff rankings come out for the first time. Interested to see where Tennessee is, but also where Alabama is and where the SEC lands, because there is a growing concern that, again, we're going to do this thing where despite Tennessee's head-to-head win over Alabama's quote-unquote best win being better than Tennessee's quote-unquote best win, and that mental gymnastics will put Alabama potentially right with Tennessee or ahead of Tennessee if both resumes are otherwise equal. Heather Dinich wrote about this at ESPN.com this week, saying if Tennessee finishes as a 2-loss team, it could be in trouble in the committee meeting room where the winner of the Alabama-LSU game could have a better resume. If Alabama wins, though, that could help the Vols if they honor that head-to-head. This is ridiculous that we're doing this again. We did this 2 years ago where Alabama finished ranked higher than Tennessee, even though Tennessee head-to-head beat Alabama. But, guys, I think style points are becoming more and more important for Tennessee starting this weekend against Mississippi State. I know they kind of are what they are in terms of they play really good complementary football. They're excellent on defense, and they just can't quite click on offense. Tennessee needs to click on offense and have a blow-up, great 40, 50-point game against a formidable opponent in order to really feel good about themselves with 2 losses making the playoff.
Yeah, I think it does matter at this point. And like you said, maybe the committee is not going to admit to, oh, yeah, we're looking for style points. But because the SEC is so even right now and not one team is undefeated in this conference, you could go all day comparing this win to that win or, that loss to this loss. And when it comes down to it, it's going to be a hard decision for the committee no matter what. And you were speaking of specifically, what Heather Dinich said about Alabama, LSU, and whoever wins this weekend. And even, if LSU wins it, Will, and I'm looking at right now, they've got 2 losses too, correct? They started out the year with that USC loss that now kind of looks a little bit worse because USC has not been great this season in the Big Ten. And then they just took the L recently.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss at home. So that's one of the things with LSU too. Do I think they're a better team than the Tennessee Vols right now? Honestly, no, I really don't. I do think that they have maybe an offense that gets a little bit more credit. Garrett Nussmeier, though, has not been exquisite in the last few games. And I think Nico Iamaleava, what's interesting about him is he's maybe not been great what everybody thought he should be this season, but I think he's going to start coming into his own as well.
He is now. Yeah.
Exactly.
He's getting a lot better.
So that's where you got to start looking at where are the teams playing the best football now, Will, and that brings me back to the point of style points. That's exactly right. Against a team like Mississippi State, I think you need Nico Iamaleava in this offense to roar even more, to really start to get the committee to go on their side.
Tennessee has similar moments coming up in their schedule that could probably put this conversation to bed. If they go to Georgia and get a W, that's the most recent history we're going to have of Tennessee. They also have to play a ranked Vanderbilt team. Yeah, I said it. A ranked Vanderbilt team that's probably going to go bowling this year. I think that when you look at Alabama's win over Georgia, sure, that was earlier in the season. That might have been a win that they were looking at like, hey, look, they beat the number 2 team in the country. I think that they were maybe even number 1 at that time. Mm-hmm. But I think that when you look at how Vanderbilt could or how Tennessee could finish up with those 2 ranked scheduled games, it could be hard for the committee to deny the momentum that Tennessee has had to this point, especially if they go on the road to Georgia and go to Athens and get a W.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way,
it was A&M.
It was A&M that they lost to. They beat Ole Miss, but it was in overtime. So, yeah.
That's right. I watched both those games. I just got mixed up. I just think it's not very important. I mean, you look at the criteria of what the committee's supposed to look at. Like, does a 30-point win versus a 14-point win over Mississippi State really make a big difference at the end of the day? Probably not. But I do think that Tennessee has to handle its own business and take the Bama bias out of it. Because is the Alabama bias supposed to be part of it for the committee? Well, no. Is it? Heck yeah, it is. Of course it is.
Yep.
It always is.
Yeah. And maybe the bias, is a little less now without Nick Saban there. I mean, honestly, I know that it's still Alabama, but Nick Saban, I think, had such a grip on college football and, kind of earned it, considering he is the GOAT and he was able to do that. Kalen DeBoer has got a lot of respect in this league, but he, again, is taking over a historic program and coming off a historic coach. And so I don't think he's always necessarily now going to get the benefit of the doubt with Alabama until they prove they can be that powerhouse moving forward. Again, a team that has 2 losses this season, Alabama at Vanderbilt. And I think what hurts them in this situation, guys, too, is that the loss to Tennessee, when it goes head to head, if it comes down to it, they still lost to Tennessee.
But unfortunately, the committee has already set the precedent in past seasons that head-to-head is not as important to them as what's your best win, what's your worst loss.
Yeah,
but I think you have to look at the team that Tennessee's put on the field this year that has really, kind of raised some eyebrows on both sides of the football, really. But then also look at a vulnerable Alabama team. You can have an unbelievably beautiful car that's got tons of horsepower. But in Alabama's instance, it's about the driver, and the driver is the coach. You know what I'm saying? Because those are the same players that were on the field last year.
It is.
Now, can you imagine?
They've got the same type of talent.
If Nick Saban were head coaching, if Nick Saban were the head coach of Alabama and they were going through the same lumps that they're going through this year, we'd be like, what in the world is going on? But the difference is what? Kalen DeBoer. He's behind the steering wheel of this program now. And you can see an obvious difference. Maybe it's a difference in the standard. Maybe it's a difference in how they're handling the curves. But either way, this is a more vulnerable team that you cannot deny that that's the situation.
And I think just Brad brought it up a second ago. What can you do lately? What's the eye test in terms of these games coming down the stretch? And when you look at Alabama, they've got LSU this weekend. That's a big matchup. But coming up, Tennessee's going to have Georgia at Georgia. That's a big opportunity for them. They also have Vanderbilt left on their schedule that if Vanderbilt continues to play good football, they're going to be continued to rank. And I think they're earning respect amongst the committee as a real team that you're playing here this season, not just the Vandy of old. And you look on Alabama's remaining, they got a cupcake coming up in Mercer after LSU. Oklahoma, they're nothing anymore at this point of the season. And then Auburn, anything can happen in the Iron Bowl. I get it, but Auburn is not a good team this year.
It'll be interesting. I just think Tennessee needs a game where it still clicks, and that I think is the part of it that is going to be tricky because the NC State win is now insignificant. The Oklahoma win is increasingly insignificant, although in an SEC environment at night.
Yeah.
So you can't totally write that off against anyone in the SEC, but Oklahoma's hardly looked like an SEC team this year. So I think that it needs to start this weekend. And honestly, I think it's going to because you look at what Nico Iamaleava did against Kentucky. I still think that is his best performance in a Tennessee uniform. And you've got 3 dropped touchdowns, just stone cold drops on at least 2 of them that would have given him about a 450-yard performance, completing about 75% of his passes. The quarterback, for me, is no longer a legitimate concern for this Tennessee offense. I think Nico Iamaleava's worst play this season is behind him, and you are seeing him take major steps forward. Now he's just got to get help from his wide receivers. And if he gets that on Saturday night and Tennessee can put a little bit of confidence down going into Athens, who knows? I never feel good about that matchup because Kirby Smart continues to show time and time again that he has got whatever the curse is, whatever the best game plan is against the Josh Heupel offense.
The one thing I'll say to that, though, Will, this year, and I get it, when you go on the road in any environment in the SEC, but especially with the team that has been really good in the past few years and defensively has been really good, it is always like you're in the middle on this, right? The only thing I'll say is I said this yesterday on the show. I absolutely think Tennessee's defense is one of the best in the country, hands down, period, right? And so if you can cause Carson Beck to be the erratic little, quarterback that he's been this year, I don't know. Maybe I'm not a Carson Beck fan. I've not been. So you know what? I'll just give my true opinion on him. If you can really make his life hell that day, I do think you give your team an opportunity, especially if you can give Nico that confidence coming into that game. And again, that goes back to finding that in this Mississippi State game on the road.
Well, it'll be a night game
in
Athens. We know that officially as of yesterday. It's interesting. That place didn't used to be loud. It's a lot better now. I mean, you win as many national championships as Kirby Smart has. You win 2 in a row. You're right in the mix every single season. People are going to show up. They're going to be louder. But that place has become significantly different than the way it used to be. Ramon's talked about that a ton, that when he was there, he didn't lose in Athens.
Right.
It wasn't a crazy environment. Bill Martin of Tennessee Sports Information tweeted this yesterday. All 4 of Tennessee's games away from home this season have been 7:30 Eastern ABC primetime games.
At least you're prepared, right?
I guess.
I mean, as wild as that is, I guess it's kind of known now what you're playing in as an environment, whether you're home in that great environment or you're on the road at another person's place. That's what also is good for Nico at this point when you're playing really important games.
I mean, we see it all the time, man. Success that makes you smell better, it makes you look better. You're getting better quality clothes. You're getting better stuff, right? So Georgia's had some success. So, of course, their program's going to look like it. Hey, I want to get with that guy right there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the only road game. Well, I say road game in air quotes because it's at Vandy and that'll be a home game. But the only game away from Knoxville, Tennessee will play this year, not at night, will be against Vanderbilt because that's supposed to be an early start.
That's the early one.
See,
okay.
Now, if you live here in Nashville, I've had this because I'm not an SEC guy. Whatever, I'm a Big Ten dude. But when I moved here, I'm thinking, why is there not more support for Vanderbilt? Why do in every single instance the Vols, the Orange, just show up and just bludgeon them, right? Well, here's the situation, man, and it's unfortunate that Vanderbilt faces LSU. They've got South Carolina, which obviously gave A&M their first SEC loss. And, of course, they got to finish against number 7 at this time, Tennessee. But that could be a barn burner, man. I wasn't even thinking about going to any Vandy games, but I'm going to tell you what. If they're respectable, and let's just say they go down to the Bayou and just beat LSU, I'm going to be there to watch what could be probably one of the most monumental games for Tennessee people, right? Whether you're in Knoxville or Nashville, to see these two teams play each other.
Yeah.
And they're both going to go to a bowl game. You know what I mean? Regardless of if somehow the Vols don't make it into the playoffs, they're going to go to a bowl game. But so is Vanderbilt.
That'd be fun.
615-737-1045, our number if you want to get in on the discussion. And coming up, college hoops. Very back. We'll recap what you may have missed if you're watching Monday Night Football last night. Coming up. RKW rolls on. Ramon, Kayla, and Will. 615-737-1045. Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling with you. Streaming live on 1045 The Zone TV. Tip-off last night in college basketball. Brad, you said you're a Big Ten guy. You got a pretty good program up there in Champaign, Illinois. And so you can relate to us to the excitement we have for college hoops being back.
I love it. I love the fact that Illinois' program, and I know y'all don't hear, but this is a different color orange, what I'm talking about. Football program's doing well. Basketball program's picking up where it left off last year.
I went to that game.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
Who are you rooting for?
This team I've rooted for every second of my life.
Who are you rooting? Is this a trick question?
Listen, whenever they have ball reference, and Will and I are doing high school games, if there's any sort of Rocky Top going, he just pauses. You know what I mean? So
he's got to soak it in.
I just have a smile on my face as I continue speaking.
There it is.
You know what's funny about Illinois basketball, too? And, there's been really good stretches and then maybe stretches where you're like, okay, they need to get better again. But D. Brown, that era, when D. Brown played for them, I don't know what it was about him, but I just loved watching Illinois basketball because of D. Brown. And that is the first name that always pops up when I think about Illinois basketball. So I know that's a random thought, but that's just what my connection to Illinois basketball was.
Flying Illini were.
Yeah. It's fun.
We're hanging around when we were out of school. They were flying then.
80-64, Tennessee beats Gardner-Webb last night, and Nashville native and fifth-year transfer Chaz Lanier led the way, 18 points. Year 10 for Rick Barnes already. Isn't that crazy?
Good night.
Are you at Tennessee?
Yeah, year 10 at Tennessee.
What in the world? That's crazy, Will. Holy crap.
Yep.
Yeah.
He took over when I was a freshman.
That's right.
At Tennessee.
And the thing is, though, he's one of those guys that you look at like, he runs a great program.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's got the respect, I think, from top to bottom. Most collegiate programs because of how he gets his kids to compete and also how he gets the talent to come into the building. Right?
He gets like the right fits.
Exactly. So
for the most part.
It doesn't shock me that he's now one of the cornerstones of SEC basketball.
Really interested to see Jemai Mashack continue to play for this Tennessee team this season. He made multiple threes for the fifth time in his Tennessee career. He's a guy that they keep talking about on the broadcast. He took upwards of 30,000 threes this offseason and has worked so much at his three-point shot. And Rick Barnes has said that he has been their most consistent three-point shooter through the offseason. Mashack, not a guy that's been a shooter for a lot of his career. He's been the defensive ace, but made a couple of threes as Tennessee starts off on the right foot last night. There was already the first court storming of the college basketball season. Did you guys see this?
I did not see this.
Yeah, UCF over Texas A&M in Orlando.
Oh, okay.
Look at that.
Not a good night to be a Texas basketball team. Texas loses at home, so not back. They lose to Ohio State 80-72, and then A&M goes to Orlando, loses 64-61 at UCF.
Ooh, sorry, Texas. Sorry about it. By the way, Texas and Oklahoma, you got to remember, too, first year in the SEC for basketball now.
Yeah?
So that will be interesting as they kind of go along that schedule.
Just wonder if there'll be any issue in Knoxville to replace Dalton Connect. Of course, obviously there's a lot more than he that would help this team be good last year, but that's a huge part of your program that's now in L.A. So who's going to step up and be that dude,
It'll be different. Chaz Lanier, the guy who I think will have those high of expectations put on him. Maybe not Dalton Connect level expectations because that's a little unrealistic, but he was brought in to be the guy. Was brought in to be their scorer, to be their offensive ace that they bring in as a transfer and kind of follow the same format and mentality. So it will be interesting to see how long it takes Tennessee to replace that production.
Sure. And it is such a process. I mean, the college basketball season is so long, right? And so we do see teams kind of have building points throughout the season. And Tennessee, they're not going to be perfect coming out of the gate by any means, but you do expect some of these big additions to eventually come along. And then again, you've got Zakai Ziegler there that has just been such a rock for this program, and he's back again. So I think just having him too, I think he just rallies guys. Like there's something about him. Like the minute I met him too, there's just something about his personality. You can see why guys magnify to him. So Louisville up next, I believe that's at Louisville, right? So that'll be interesting. Oh, I see you guys have the Montana Grizzlies on your schedule.
Oh, sure. I don't know.
There we go.
It doesn't really
The
move
Grizz
the
are
needle.
coming to
It does not
Knoxville.
really move the needle for me,
There
to be
you
honest
go.
with you. It's just kind of the next.
Come on, you know
random
Caleb
team.
and the West teams.
Going to Knoxville.
Well, I covered them for a long
Yeah.
time. They
There you go.
have a pretty good FCS program, but yeah, I just saw that. I was like, whoa, interesting. Coming all the way from
The more
Missouri.
you know.
Yeah.
The big surprise last night of the SEC, North Florida goes to Columbia, South Carolina, beats the Gamecocks. North Florida picked at the bottom of the Atlantic Sun, picked 7th in that conference, 74-71 over Lamont Paris's team that is expected to take a step back this season. Picked 11th in the SEC after they finished really right at the top with Tennessee last season. So it's a fun time of year. November, the whiplash you get in terms of college football and college basketball happening at the same time. Send a prayer up for your local play-by-play broadcaster. Like voices of major programs right now. November is their Super Bowl. Just a month-long Super Bowl where you're going to have broadcasters that are doing a Tuesday night coach's show, Wednesday night basketball game, a Saturday football game, and then do it all again the next week. Maybe even a Thursday football game.
Well, the
basketball game mixed in there.
The saving grace is that, football is on its trek. You know what I'm saying? They're 3-4 games into almost landing this thing to get into bowl season. We're still trying to figure out and discover what new team has been, brewing, before the real games start to be played for basketball. You know what I mean? Like you just mentioned South Carolina having a hiccup. You mentioned A&M having a hiccup. I'll say hiccups because these teams are supposed to be better. And maybe by January when they're starting to hit their stride, they will be. But at this point, there's still an element of discovery when it comes to the hoops. But we already know who these football teams are to this point.
You do. And the storylines for basketball, they always kind of, they change throughout the season too because like I said, they play so many games. I'm interested in seeing if in Kentucky can keep Kentucky, the blue blood name alive. And then, what's going on down there in Arkansas with, everything in terms of the new coach, Coach Cal down there. And can he create something out of nothing with his roster that's all new? So there's always so many fun storylines that go throughout the college basketball season. And now we need to be aware because we've got to follow everything.
And the Coach Cal era begins Wednesday against Lipscomb.
There we go.
Local tie there for
team.
the Bisons. That's right. Coming up, there is a hot ticket in Knoxville for Tennessee and Mississippi State this weekend. We've got 2 tickets to give away, and that is coming up next. Plus, there was a callback from one former Titan that many of you are discussing last night on Monday Night Football. We'll talk about that next.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson. Want to tell you about one of my favorite restaurants in town. You've probably heard of them, O'Charlie's. Born right here in Nashville, has been serving up Southern hospitality since 1971. And with their several locations all around Middle Tennessee, my friends at O'Charlie's are going to deliver that true Southern comfort food experience, and they're not going to hand out that big bill in the end. Maybe you're thinking of taking the family out to eat after the kiddos' activities today or this week. O'Charlie's has you covered, offering 2 of its family-style meals. Get this, you guys. Just $25. That's right. In this economy, Monday through Thursday, you can choose between their tasty chicken tenders, and they are good. I just had them last week. Get the honey mustard dipping sauce. So good. Or the chicken Alfredo. And again, it's just $25 to feed the whole fam. I'm telling you, if you want bang for your buck when it comes to grub, O'Charlie's is the place to check out. You can get more flavor, more choices, more value every day at O'Charlie's.
What's going on? 7:01. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Monday Night Football, Baker Mayfield and the Bucs take down the Chiefs, take them to the limit, that is, but don't get a chance to touch the ball in overtime as the Chiefs take it 30-24. DeAndre Hopkins had a night, catching 8 passes for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Chiefs remain undefeated while the Bucs fall to 4-5. Happy trade deadline day as it is here. Yesterday, Broncos getting an early start, sending outside linebacker Baron Browning to the Cardinals for a 6th-round pick, but more trades are expected to happen today. Any trade must be completed before 3 p.m. Central. Some Titans, there have been speculations around trading. Arden Key, Harold Landry, Sebastian Joseph Day. We'll keep you up to date on any trades that happen throughout the day. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. Now to get some Vols tickets away on 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2, 7 a.m. in Nashville, Tennessee. This is Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW with Brad Hopkins in for Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, producer Robert Walsh. I'm Will Bowling, and we are ready to give away some Tennessee and Mississippi State tickets. It's a hot ticket to see the Vols in Neyland Stadium. Be caller number 5 right now on this Tennessee Ticket Tuesday to see Tennessee host Mississippi State this Saturday at Neyland Stadium. Thanks to Shoney's. 615-737-1045. Delicious has been trending at Shoney's for over 75 years. Head in for a delicious meal today at one of Shoney's Middle Tennessee locations. Shoney's, always fresh, always delicious. Let's eat. 615-737-1045. Best of luck. And I will see you there Saturday night.
Yes, so you're going to that one.
I will be there.
Nice.
I'll be in attendance.
We still need to get Ramon to a game. I feel like it just we got to get that jet for him. Get him over to a game.
Crazy. We saw, somebody tweeted it out, a picture of somebody wearing a Ramon Foster jersey.
No kidding.
In Neyland Stadium this year.
Did we put it on our Twitter?
It was his mom.
Ramon did, yeah.
His mom.
Ramon put it on his
I'll
account.
go back and look at that. It was his mom. No.
Not bad.
Relative.
Yeah.
It was a guy. Yeah.
It was. It's pretty cool.
It was not small.
Narrows it down.
Cool.
Yeah, that's right. Monday Night Football last night. Chiefs beat the Bucs 30-24 in overtime. Did you notice what DeAndre Hopkins did?
Scored 2 touchdowns.
He didn't just score a touchdown. He did the Remember the Titans celebration after his first TD.
See, this is why.
That trolling us?
Yes, listen. This is why when you asked me earlier, am I happy for DeAndre Hopkins that he was able to do his thing? I'm going to tell you one thing. DeAndre Hopkins, do what you want to do when you're popping, right? But he has done a little itty bitty of trolling ever since he's just hopped on over there to Kansas City. There is definitely a little trolling going on.
You go from a team that had won 1 game before they traded him to a team that hadn't lost any. You're feeling a certain way.
I don't think it was trolling. I mean, he's never really been the type, like he said after he got traded, he was like, I've no ill will. Like, I enjoyed my time there.
Well, he wouldn't, though.
I don't know.
He's always been respectful to Amy Adams Strunk and the organization. I almost think he was maybe giving a tip of the cap.
He was giving
remembering the Titans.
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
Okay,
Celebration
so
gate.
Take it one of 2 ways, yeah.
I don't know what to think. My brain's all scattered.
But I still listen. When you hear Patrick Mahomes talk about him, matter of fact, he even said that he heard that D-Hop had lost a step. I don't know where he heard that from.
Patrick Mahomes said that? I didn't
he said that Patrick said that he heard that before he got there. And he said he hadn't seen it. And then they were interviewing Kareem Hunt last night after the game, who was on his 2nd stint in Kansas City. He's like, D-Hop is, just talking about like him still being one of the best receivers in the game.
Well, he is. I mean, nobody's doubting that. I mean, he's solid. When he's healthy and he's out there and they're utilizing him, there's no doubt that he is still that guy. He takes care of himself. I mean, he has all the things that he does. And again, a big reason why the Titans should get a lot of love because they allowed him to do his own thing when it came to rehab this year and all of that stuff that comes along with it, because he is very particular in how he takes care of his body at this point of his career. By the way, I saw the stat from the 33rd team, our friends over there. He has caught a touchdown from 14 different quarterbacks around the league in his career.
All I'm saying is that we gave A.J. Brown away for draft equity. We gave D-Hop away for potentially draft equity.
I think those are different scenarios, though.
How's that?
A.J. Brown, you got a first-round pick back for him because you didn't want to pay him because he was young in his career and you felt like you could allocate that money elsewhere, and he wanted more than what he deserved. DeAndre Hopkins, you sold because you're a seller, and he wasn't really involved in the offense to begin with.
You're still looking at very valuable pieces of this offense. How they were using D-Hop or not, I still think he was.
A.J. Brown was so much more valuable to that offense than what DeAndre Hopkins was.
DeAndre Hopkins was
probably
probably the most
his career.
At this point in this offense, DeAndre Hopkins had more of a connection with Will Levis than any receiver that we had.
Yeah,
and we haven't shown anybody step up to that point just yet.
He's in his 30s.
It still didn't matter. He was still his pacifier.
Absolutely matters. A.J. Brown was, 24, 23 when they traded him?
I'm still looking at the value of a receiver in this offense that was really actually doing some things. And A.J. Brown was that guy, just like DeAndre Hopkins was that guy over the past couple of seasons since we got Will Levis.
The only thing I'll say about that is DeAndre Hopkins had that connection with Will Levis, yes. However, this year, and again, it wasn't as great of a start to the season for him because maybe Will Levis is not who we thought he was. And it didn't seem like Mason Rudolph had a ton of time to develop that with him before he was gone. But the minute that DeAndre Hopkins left, guys, Calvin Ridley has been utilized and he's shown up. And I know it's with Mason and not Will Levis, and that's who matters in the end. But that's also something that you do wonder. Was there some going behind the scenes and, hey, give me the ball? You know, I don't know.
Was Calvin Ridley not on the field when Will Levis was healthy?
No, he was. And that's the whole thing. They clearly didn't even find that connection in training camp, but D-Hop wasn't even there in training camp.
Yeah. I just don't think it's the same thing because you got significantly more value out of A.J. Brown than you did Hopkins, who was young, who you could have paid. You just chose not to because he felt like he wanted more than what he was about to get from you. And Hopkins is in his 30s and wasn't going to be here next year anyway.
Well, we'll see what happens with the draft picks that they do get from the DeAndre Hopkins trade.
And they've got to get, you guys, no matter what, they've got to go get a young receiver. Like, if you're going to better whatever quarterback in the future, yeah, you have Calvin Ridley for a few more years. He's still older, right? This receiver core, they've got to start getting young. They've got to start homegrown, like, with the receivers as well. And I know it's never been a thing. It's been a tough thing here, a tough subject. They've got to start hitting on those type of skill players, too.
Caples on YouTube says, did I just hear dudes say money he didn't deserve talking about A.J. Brown? No, that's not my opinion. That was the Titans' opinion. They felt like he wanted more than what they were willing to pay him, so they traded him once he started demanding a new contract. Got rid of him. That's just literally what happened. Anyway, 615-737-1045 is our number. Chiefs, as we said, beat the Bucs 30-24. That spread was always way too high for me. 9.5. And Tampa is an interesting case because, again, it feels like they started out hot. They have regressed a little bit. They're 4-5 at this point, but they are right in that mix of teams who I feel identities have not been set in stone. And they've shown us enough offensively that if they do add at wide receiver, which they might do today, maybe they can still get hot down the road. Because, man, they had an opportunity last night.
Yeah.
There is a trade that just happened, I'm told.
Oh, snap.
Oh.
This early?
Okay.
So that will be the way we go today. The Browns have traded 3-time Pro Bowl pass rusher Zadarius Smith to the Detroit Lions.
Oh, my goodness.
That makes sense.
It goes.
So there is a suitor for Arden Key and Harold Landry that might be off the table now.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest one, y'all, that I thought that one of these guys could go to, especially because recently they played the Lions, and especially Arden Key had a good day against them. And now that seems to be, like you said, off the table with Aiden Hutchinson getting injured and out the season. They really needed to fill that void. I still think they're probably one of the best teams in the NFL, if not the best, and that just gets them to be even stronger on defense.
They still showed in Aaron Glenn's defense that they could find ways to manufacture pressure.
Yeah.
But now that they have a Zadarius Smith in there that is going to play the role of Aiden Hutchinson, then they got even tougher. I mean, not tougher when Aiden Hutchinson was in the lineup, but I'm saying as tough as they were being able to get there with 4 versus bringing 5, 6 dudes at some point in time. And sometimes that works. You know what I mean? If you don't have Jimmys and Joes that can just flat out beat the guy from across from you, there's nothing wrong with confusing an offense and then sending pressure in places that they don't expect it and get to the quarterback, right? Well, I think with Zadarius Smith, the way that he plays, I think that he was a Lions fan or something like that, some kind of connection to where he really wanted to be in that situation. Dan Campbell knows what dudes can play.
Going to a better
right?
place for sure.
Jeez.
He's not going to let his career completely die in Cleveland like everybody else. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe he'll do a Remember the Browns celebration.
Yeah, right.
Is there such a thing? Remember the Browns?
Yeah, maybe you guys. Maybe I'm off on that, and people calling me out saying, wow, how dare you, say that about
stand
DeAndre
on it if you want
Hopkins.
to. It don't matter.
I don't know, you guys. Sometimes I hear
opinion.
things behind the scenes, and those stick with me. A lot, with what was going on in other situations. So sometimes I just keep it in the middle. Maybe it was that, maybe it wasn't. Zadarius Smith, by the way, in week 8 alone, 9 pressures in terms of in that game, tied for second, 28.1 pressure rate third, and 25 pass rush win rate, which was 7th. So this guy is definitely balling at a level this year.
For sure. You're not a young dude either, though, but still.
No, he's not. But you know what?
32 years old.
Yeah.
If you can utilize him when you still got something left in the tank, why not?
So he's 32 years old. For comparison, Harold Landry is 28. Similar contract situations between the two. Not totally identical, but there are outs in those contracts after this season for both of them. And here's the price for Zadarius Smith. It is Smith and a 2026 7th going to Detroit for a 5th next year and a 6th in 2026.
Oh.
5th and a 6th.
Wow.
Both Zadarius Smith and Harold Landry both have 5 sacks this season. Landry is 4 years younger. Again, contracts not identical, but that would be the going rate for a trade deadline edge rusher acquisition. So Titans fans, you got to ask yourself, are you willing to take a 5th and a 6th for Landry and a 7th? And again, not totally equal, but you're looking ballpark at that being your price.
That's not bad. I do think, Landry being a little bit younger, that's an interesting one. That's a really interesting one. That's a tough one.
How long has Harold been here?
Oof.
He's the longest tenured Titan, isn't he?
Was
I think
he
he
before? Yeah, because he was before Jeff.
Yeah, he's the longest tenured Titan, and here he goes at 28 years old.
I don't
bringing us
think-
a 5th and 6th.
I don't think he's gone, Harold Landry.
I'm hoping.
I think they're going to keep him too. I don't even know if they're going to make a move at this point, guys.
Landry was drafted here in 2018.
Okay.
7 years. 7 years.
615-737-1045, the number if you want to jump in. Coming up, we touched on this yesterday. What is the best plan and pathway moving forward for the Titans at quarterback? After Mason Rudolph got a W for him over the weekend. We'll talk about that next. 7 a.m. hour rolls on. RKW 104.5 The Zone. Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. 615-737-1045. What is the best path moving forward for the Titans at the quarterback position? Well, yesterday, Brian Callahan was asked, hey, do you still have the same idea that Will Levis comes back if he's healthy? Brian Callahan said yes. Said that is still the plan, has not changed. They hope that this is the week. Traveling to L.A. to take on the Chargers, that Will Levis is back in at quarterback. How do you proceed, guys? Especially now that Mason Rudolph has essentially done the heavy lifting in both of your wins this year.
So Mason Rudolph was allegedly in the lineup because Will was hurt.
Sure.
Not because he was the better option.
Correct.
So what they're saying is that this is a process, this is a project of what we're trying to develop Will Levis. And he experienced a setback when he dove on the sideline and hurt his shoulder. Now, let's get back to what our process is, developing Will Levis. It's not about Mason Rudolph. It wasn't about putting the guy in there that's going to give them some W's at this point. It's about developing a roster. It's about getting the most out of a young player, whether he's having ups and downs or not. And once he's able to do it, he resumes where he took off, where he left off, basically. So I think that this is just them sticking to what their game plan was from the very beginning of the year. We're going to maximize and make Will Levis as best we can. And then, sure, there's going to be some ebbs and flows. Mason Rudolph, in other words, if Will Levis didn't dive off the sideline and hurt himself, Mason Rudolph would not have been injected into the lineup. Mm-hmm. It's not like they were looking around and saying, hey, look, we got to get better at quarterback and we're going to make a change. That had nothing to do with it. So it's not about Mason Rudolph. It's about them riding out with Will Levis because that's their quarterback.
It does make it more of a sticky situation the way that I look at it, just because I guess once you get a feel for things are starting to turn the corner a little for this offense, and then in turn the entire team is starting to believe a little more in itself, then it's harder for me to be 100% on board with going back to Will Levis, because in a way I almost feel like I know who Will Levis is as a quarterback at this point. And I know he maybe has not gotten the fairest shake because the injury has prohibited him from being on the field, but in the games which he did start this season, it was not very good. But I understand what they're trying to do with Will Levis, and I understand they are trying to give him a fair shake. If anyone's going to give him a fair shake, it's going to be a quarterback-friendly coach in Brian Callahan, who spoke 2 weeks ago, or last week, I should say, about how important it is to give quarterbacks time to develop. So no surprise to me that they are going to give this back to Will Levis once he is healthy. However, it is hard and is maybe going to be hard for fans to watch, because you might see this offense again take a step backwards because he's getting back in the groove of things. He has to find that connection with the Calvin Ridley that's been very successful the last 2 weeks with that connection with Mason Rudolph, right?
I'll be honest, though. As a Titans fan, I'd rather watch Will Levis than Mason Rudolph.
Mason
100%.
didn't like come in there, kick the door, and all of a sudden say, oh, my gosh. No, I'm just saying to where it wouldn't be a situation where you go back to Will Levis because Mason Rudolph is playing so well. He's made this offense look so different. It's not the case. This isn't a situation like we're seeing in Carolina, where Bryce Young gets benched for Andy Dalton, where Anthony Richardson, despite what we're talking about, him tapping the helmet was the reason why he got benched.
Back, by the way.
It wasn't. Joe Flacco was just a better option at that point, and the Colts still have something to play for. Okay, this is this division is crazy right now. The Houston Texans are experiencing their issues, but they're still atop the division. And the Colts are saying, hey, look, we can catch them. Jacksonville and Tennessee, we're not too much worried about what they're doing. So I think with Will Levis' situation, it's like, hey, the guy was hurt, and that's why Mason's in the lineup. It's not because he got outperformed by Mason Rudolph. I remember during training camp, we were looking at Mason saying, man, he's playing so well that it's just not going to give Malik Willis any opportunities here. So they just go ahead and let him go.
He was
That's how well
here
he's playing.
To be the backup, period. I mean, there's no, this has been the situation from the start. I'm not saying that, they shouldn't give Will Levis a chance. I'm just saying if this goes back this weekend, if he plays and we're going backwards and seeing this offense then, not being able to overcome some mistakes. You're going to see maybe some of those boneheaded plays. I hope not, but, he hasn't proven to yet get out of that stage of his career yet. there's going to be frustration with fans again, right? And you're going to maybe want to see Mason Rudolph back in there. Maybe not, but I hope this was a time for him to sit back, look at the things that he may have not seen when he was actually out there playing, rest his mind, rewire his mind, and maybe he is a different quarterback once he gets back in there. But reality of the situation is he's going to be rusty. He's going to have to find that connection with some of these guys that he hasn't been able to find yet, i.e. Calvin Ridley, who he hasn't had a connection with since training camp. And he's going to make mistakes still. So as long as everybody is cool with that and giving him time this season to do that, that's fine. But it is going to be frustrating.
I think the issue, though, is that Mason Rudolph has made similar mistakes.
Yeah, just not the boneheaded.
Like he did against the Lions.
As many boneheaded ones.
He threw it right at the defender against Detroit. To me,
as he's getting sacked.
If Mason Rudolph had come in and put up Joe Flacco performances like he's done in Indy, then I think we're having a different conversation. He didn't take this opportunity and run with it.
In other words, he didn't go down to Miami and on his own laurels, his own ability, beat the Dolphins and give them their first win, okay?
And Mason Rudolph has never been a Joe Flacco level quarterback in his career. So I think you are asking for him to be something he isn't, which is a guy who can step up and be your starter moving forward. That's just not who he is. He's a good backup quarterback. He's not someone that's going to just take the reins of this thing and
yeah, but that's why you have those guys in the lineup, though. Because if that weren't the case, you could just get another young dude and throw him in there and him experience the lumps that young players do. But you get a guy that's vested. You get a guy that has experience because you do think that he's going to give your offense a chance to win. Now, is he better than the starter? Probably not, especially when you're talking about investing in a guy that is a first-round pick. Someone that's highly.
Will Levis has way more talent. No one's debating that against Mason Rudolph. Will Levis, though, needs to take advantage of this situation that he's being given and given the opportunity game and game and game again. They're literally saying you have the whole season to make mistakes and all this stuff. At some point, Will Levis has to take advantage of the opportunity. And to this point, he has not done that. And so you can have the biggest arm you want and you can be as athletic as you want. But if you're not going to take advantage of what's being presented to you, like here, the starting spot is back to you, and you don't learn anything, that's freaking frustrating no matter what. No matter if you're a fan, you're a teammate. And that's the other thing. How about his teammates? If Will just gets back out here again and continues to make those mistakes and doesn't learn, I think that's frustrating as a teammate too.
I watched the Colts, and Flacco was on the sideline after a series, right? And Anthony Richardson was on a knee in front of him, going through the tablet with him, just as if he's learning something from him. Mm-hmm. I don't see that kind of connection between Will and Mason. I don't feel that Will is like, hey, you know what? Despite me not being in the lineup, I'm so engaged in what we're doing that I'm going to be sitting here learning from you, whatever it is that you're experiencing, so then that way I can either get better from it, or I'm just at least understanding what it is that they're doing, the challenges that you're going through, so that way I can be better the next time I get my opportunity. I think
we don't know what goes on behind the doors
we don't.
I'm
just looking at the situation when you're talking about Anthony Richardson getting benched, not because he's unhealthy, but because he just was not equipped.
He's terrible.
Right. He's just not good. Yeah. And again,
he's still very young.
I want Will Levis. I want Will Levis to succeed. I like the young man. I think he's a great competitor. He's got that natural ability to lead. But at some point, you got to show me that. And that's all I'm saying. I hope he took this time to really reevaluate how he is thinking this quarterback position and what it means, and maybe settling himself down a little bit, because I think he can kind of be too competitive in his own right sometimes, and it hurts him. So I think if he does all those things and you can start to see progress because all these other things aren't being, mistakes aren't glaring over all of this, then I'm like, okay, cool. I can see this being a thing where he grows on that, find that connection with Calvin Ridley, do some of those things that you didn't do before you got hurt. And then the other big thing, guys, is if your shoulder is not bothering you, you feel like you're ready to go back in, then you better be ready to make those big throws, because that is something you're going to have to do. That's part of who you are. And I don't want to hear the excuse that you can't do it because your shoulder.
How much better is Jalen Hurts with Saquon Barkley? How much better is Lamar Jackson with Derrick Henry? In other words, I'm saying you don't have to be this explosive passing quarterback to really make an offense good. Tony Pollard has been the most consistent, best part of this offense all year round. Now, admittedly, he's a little dinged up right now. And maybe
he's
that's
still doing his thing, though.
And he's still doing his thing. He didn't have one snap of practice last week and still rushed for almost 100 yards. So, in other words, you can rely on what this offense's strengths are, and I say that loosely, they're strengths, but they're better equipped right now, especially with a gimpy quarterback who's dealing with a shoulder situation, at running the football effectively. Because I know it sounds boring, you know what I'm saying, as far as like running for success, but I think what that does is it doesn't create those situations that have been problematic for the Titans. Passing the football, protecting the pocket, running right routes, getting the connection downfield. Now, it's great to have those kind of threats so defenses take you seriously, but in the end, you got to win the line of scrimmage. And winning the line of scrimmage means getting Tony Pollard being the featured guy versus Calvin Ridley being the featured guy. Calvin's shots will come once you establish that line of scrimmage and you start bludgeoning guys, and they got to start bringing dudes down in the box to slow you down.
Yeah.
So I'm saying you can take some pressure off of the quarterback receiving connection and the quarterback himself by being balanced, by doing more up front with those guys that can be better suited in a 3-point stance than a 2-point stance.
I also read an article, a great article by Nick Suss recently in terms of what, Will Levis needs to work on when he does take over at that starting spot. And, just the little things, too, leading up to the week of practice. He talked about the open line of communication Nick Suss did in this article in the Tennessee, if you want to go read it. He said after Sunday's game, when Rudolph took the podium, he explained the execution of his fourth quarter touchdown pass to NWI, Nick Westbrook-Akine, came from a week-long discussion with Callahan about how to effectively deploy one specific route concept. This is something where Rudolph throughout the week is having, like you said, that open communication. He's talking with his receivers. I think these are little details that are very important for Will Levis to learn and take into account when he is even preparing for these game days with his guys.
Yeah, the difference is the reps that you get during the week, because you just don't go out there on Sunday and turn it on.
Yeah.
Now, I know we're talking about a unique instance where Tony Pollard did just that, didn't get much reps during the week and came out there and ball out. Right. But at quarterback, you've got to be able to have the consistency of working with those guys in 7-on-7, in 9-on-7, in team periods, and all the things that go in during the week. So the hay's in the barn by Friday. You know what I'm saying? You pretty much have made a connection, or you haven't, during that weekend practice. You just don't all of a sudden go out there and turn it on Sundays. There are anomalies to where that does happen, but that's not a consistent model of success in the league.
So to answer the question we asked then, what is the pathway moving forward? Is it Levis untouchable as QB1 for the rest of the season? What are you doing moving forward with what Mason Rudolph has shown you?
Well, I think at this point they've made it clear, and I'm going to ride with them in terms of giving him a chance to prove he can be the quarterback. I think they'll ride with him. I think that's what you have to do at this point. But I will put in this: there is chance for injury again. And if that's the case, if I have another situation where the shoulder's hurting me again or hurting you again, I just think your time is done in terms of evaluating.
I mean performance level. Injury not included. Is there any way you bench Will Levis this season, in your opinion?
I don't think so, because I think they're going to let him, like they said, they want to learn everything about him, the good and the bad. That's what it means to me. And so I don't think you do bench him unless it is, like I said, he's gone because of an injury.
The response would be unbelievable if we're sitting there talking about putting Will Levis back in the lineup and Mason Rudolph were playing lights out. It wouldn't even be a question. You wouldn't even have to pose that question if Mason Rudolph were playing better in that situation, but he's not. Like you just mentioned a few minutes ago, he's making some of the same mistakes, trying to do some of the same things that didn't connect that Will Levis was doing that got him into trouble in the first place. Now, admittedly, they're dealing with the same degree of difficulty. You're dealing with an incomplete right side. You're dealing with a vulnerable situation where they're having trouble.
Now you don't have a center, by the way.
Anytime you're right, and losing Lloyd Cushenberry, and you saw the snaps were high every single time, they got to get that figured out. Plus, guys that are not necessarily going to be in the lineup next year on the right side, all that is adding to whatever quarterback is under center having to deal with. This team has second most pressures, if not sacks, than anybody else in the league.
They've been better though as of late. That's the interesting part with
The last
Rudolph,
4 games,
and obviously
right.
their line, besides the right side, had been getting better. Now you've got a little bit of a kink in the armor because you've got no more Lloyd Cushenberry. He's been such a big force in the middle. But again, I just think to Will's question, Brian Callahan has stood on this hill. He's going to continue to stand on this hill. They are going to continue to give Will Levis the starting opportunities every single week if he is healthy, no matter what he does.
As well they should. Go ahead.
It is interesting on the O-line conversation. Mason Rudolph has been pressured more than Will Levis, yet has taken 9 less sacks.
Mm-hmm.
So Mason Rudolph on 128 attempts has been pressured 61 times. It's a 44% rate. He's only taken 6 sacks.
Sure.
Will Levis has been pressured 64 times on 125 attempts. And again, obviously, dropbacks more so than just attempts. He has been pressured 42% of the time, but has been sacked 15 times.
Is that a quarterback thing, or is that just the line that was progressively getting better?
Well, first off, if you look at, let's just say, you guys have watched 7 on 7, right?
Yeah.
How many times do you see the quarterback sitting back there taking 3 and 4 seconds to throw the ball? He doesn't.
Mm-mm.
You know why? Because the route has been run precisely. There's nobody covering them. The ball gets out of the quarterback's hands and into the quarterback's hands, into the receiver's hands, right? But if all of a sudden some things aren't working well, in other words, if the coverage dictates when and where you can go with the football, now the quarterback is holding on to it, and if the pocket has been an issue, they're going to deal with the same issues over and over and over again. So it's about precision route running. It's also about a quarterback that understands what a defense is doing against them to be able to then find, through his progression, the right guy to throw the football to. All of these things have to work in combination. So it's not just the offensive line that affects protection. It's also the receivers getting open and the quarterback throwing them the ball that then makes them, at least gives them a chance to do something with it once they catch it. All of that has to work.
Yeah.
There has been another trade in the AFC. We'll tell you what that is coming up next. And we'll give you the explanation yesterday. Brian Callahan addressed a special teams issue that he feels maybe is not being characterized in the right way, to be fair. We'll do that next.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson, and I'm excited to tell you that I've found the secret to buying and selling your home without all that stress and anxiety. It's Bernie Gallerani Real Estate, and you can trust Bernie because he's taken care of his clients for years, turning complicated issues into 5-star Google reviews. Here is even better news. There is no risk to you. Bernie Gallerani, he is going to let you know that you can get out of your contract at any time. You're relocating maybe. Take advantage of Bernie Gallerani's free relocation package. He'll provide you with all the crucial information you'll need to help familiarize yourself with a new city, workplace, schools in the area, and much more. Just ask Peter. After relocating, feeling a little bit unsure about the new terrain, Peter and his family were blown away by the seamless process, top-notch communication, and true professionalism provided by the Bernie Gallerani Real Estate team. Nashville is home to so many now, to you and I. In fact, Bernie is the only real estate agent in Nashville recommended by Barbara Cochran of Shark Tank. You know, maybe if you love that show, you know who she is. And if you're ready for a smooth, stress-free home buying and selling journey, call the only agent I would contact to sell my home, Bernie Gallerani. In fact, call him on his personal cell phone. Yeah, he's giving that out, 615-429-2644. That's 615-428-2644. Or you can Google Bernie Gallerani at real estate, Bernie Gallerani Real Estate.
RKW, Ramon, Kayla, and Will continues, wrapping up hour number 2. 615-737-1045 is the number. Another trade in the NFL. This one a little bit less significant than the Zadarius Smith trade to the Detroit Lions earlier this morning. The Bears are sending Khalil Herbert to the Bengals.
Oh.
Running back help in Cincinnati.
They need it.
For a 7th-round pick.
Yeah. Joe Mixon, they've really missed him over there. And it had really been a crucial part of their offense the last few years and the success that they had. And it gets overlooked sometimes by how good Joe Burrow is and how good Jamar Chase is and T. Higgins and all that. But I think Joe Mixon was really a great complementary piece there. And so, yeah, I get it. They need this.
Isn't it crazy how they're devaluing the running back? But that has been almost the most consistent piece that every offense that's worth 100%. Anything. If you look at any dynastic quarterback, he's got a dude behind him that really makes a difference. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And we're not going to give that guy a lot of credit because that's what the league's not doing nowadays. They're devaluing the running back, who, in my opinion, has been a huge part of every team, especially offensively, their identity. Because the run game, that's synonymous with getting physical. You know what I'm saying?
As we're seeing Saquon in his behind the back leap there.
Think about it. How much better have those guys made? Brock Purdy. Are you kidding me? You don't think that he'd love the fact that Christian McCaffrey was back there doing some things, and they get guys in that can replace him while he's hurt that are kind of doing a similar type situation? Look at Peyton Manning when he was at Indianapolis. This dude had Edgerrin James. He had who's the boy that took over after Edge left?
Joseph Adai.
There
was
always a dude back there that made a difference. Why? Because the identity of an offense isn't, they say that, the passing game usually those explosive plays and, puts butts in the stands, right? But when you can just line up and bludgeon somebody and the defense is dealing with 9, 10, 11 play drives, that comes from being able to run the football consistently. And that's usually at behest of the quarterback.
Which they did on Sunday. It's interesting they had Khalil Herbert. Chase Brown had 27 carries for 120 for Cincinnati.
Yeah, and maybe they just don't feel
Sunday
like he's
the Raiders.
consistent enough. Yeah. I don't know. Or just having another.
They just had another guy.
Yeah, another guy.
7th-round pick next year. Mm-hmm. It is interesting, though, the Bengals, I just given up on them, and now I'm back in. It only took one win over a bad team at home, which, of course, they should get. But Joe Burrow is playing at a really high level. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens there with them. Brian Callahan yesterday talked about special teams penalties. Said Justin Hardy on the newest illegal formation, this time the 3rd time the Titans have had this penalty on kickoffs this year, said, he left early. Said he didn't do that in practice. Justin Hardy did it first week as a Titan. This week says shouldn't have done it. But he did tell us, though, that the original illegal formation called against the Titans, Brian Callahan said the NFL hit them back and said, yep, our bad. Shouldn't have been called.
Not good.
Whoops.
So he said, I probably shouldn't divulge this, but it was clearly not a penalty and still maintains that was not the case as well with Mason Kinsey's penalty last week.
Yeah.
So, for whatever reason, the Titans have been called for 2 illegal formations that the coaching staff feels like they shouldn't have been called for. I don't know, guys. This has happened twice. Why isn't this happening to every other team in the NFL?
Yeah, well, they admitted it's a mistake the first time. I mean, I don't know, because they don't want anybody sitting there pointing at the officials and saying, hey, you're the cause for games being won or lost. But when you make a mistake like that, you don't see the league coming out saying, hey, look, for the Titans versus such and such team, we had an erroneous call there that may or may not have affected the outcome of that game. They're not going to sit there and say, my bad, but they'll send the team a letter. If Brian hadn't mentioned that, would we have known?
Well, no.
We'd still be thinking about them making another mistake, another gaffe in lining up during special teams.
I think that's almost why he kind of divulged that information, because there is so many eyes on this special teams unit. And maybe Brian Callahan is, looking at the information that has been, given to him by the league and some of the mistakes they've made. And maybe that it went into the reasoning that you don't let Cole Anderson go at this point, because maybe you don't see it all put on him. And now, look, there are other things that are still issues with the special teams unit. But maybe that does play into it. It is a little bit frustrating. It's like, okay, come on. Like, you can get away with making mistakes as a crew, but we can't get away with it, and we aren't even able to tell the complete truth about the situation. So I'm surprised he actually said something, but at the same time, in a way, there's been so much heat on the special teams unit that maybe he felt like, you know what, screw it, here we go.
Well, at the end of the day, too, Colt Anderson has to stand on the fact that Ryan Stonehouse is 31st in net punting average this season.
Yeah.
The Titans' net are averaging 33.9 yards per punt. That's totally terrible.
Is that basically a result of what Colt Anderson is putting them in by position, or is that off of Ryan's foot?
It's a result of a lot of things, according to the coaching staff, of Ryan not having enough hang time on his punts. And Colt Anderson said last week it's an effort issue a lot of times.
Now, are you saying, like, is Ryan basically taking so much time to punt that, or is he like getting it off so quick?
He's not putting it in the air high enough, is what they've said.
Yeah, putting it high enough because he's having to kick it so quick because the rush is coming and almost said something crazy there.
There you go.
615-737-1045
is our number. Second half of the show coming up. I want to ask Brad from the O-line perspective as he watches this team play, how much better has this offensive line gotten? We'll look at that with Brad coming up. Hit the headlines as we begin hour number 3 coming up next.
What's going on? 8 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Monday Night Football last night. Baker Mayfield and the Bucs take the Chiefs to the limit, but they do not get a chance to touch the ball in overtime as the Chiefs take it 30-24. DeAndre Hopkins had a night catching 8 passes for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. Chiefs remain undefeated while the Bucs fall to 4-5. Trade deadline day is here. Yesterday, the Broncos got an early start, sending pass rusher Baron Browning to the Cardinals for a 6th-round pick. But we've had some other teams getting an early start this morning as the Browns send pass rushers Zadarius Smith and a 2026 7th-round pick to Detroit for a 2025 5th and a 2026 6th. And the Bengals adding to their backfield, acquiring running back Khalil Herbert from the Bears. Looks like that is a 2025 7th heading back to the Bears for the services of the running back. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second half of the show in hour number 3, getting started on RKW. Ramon, Kayla, and Will. 615-737-1045, the number. We'll dive into the Titans' role in the NFL trade deadline coming up in 20 minutes. Take a look around the league at the other moves and the going price on players who could be moved for the Tennessee Titans. Brad Hopkins is here filling in for Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh. I'm Will Bowling. You can join the F&M Bank chat, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, which is open and active again this morning. Brad, we talked about the lack of sacks taken by Mason Rudolph compared to Will Levis, despite the fact that Mason Rudolph has been pressured 43% of the time. Will Levis has been pressured 42% of the time. When you look at the way this offensive line is playing now compared to the beginning of the season, where are you seeing them make the biggest improvements, and how improved do you think they are?
Well, it's a combination of things. It's a combination of them playing more cohesive up front, but it's also a better connection that the quarterbacks are having with the game plan. I mentioned earlier in the segment about receivers running routes, about quarterbacks going through a progression and finding the right guy and delivering an accurate ball to where the receiver can make yards after catch, right? All of those have to work in unison for a play to work. Now, there are some vulnerabilities up front that have obviously been a part of the problem. Inconsistencies on the right side, whether it be injuries or just lack of talent, have made them more vulnerable than most. But I think at this point, when you have a quarterback that's more deliberate with where he's going with the football, it doesn't create more issues in the backfield. So as the weeks go by, also, these guys are getting better. It just happens that way. You're getting more experience. You're getting more reps, even during the week. You're playing better because you've seen more together. So they're, by attrition, naturally going to get better. But I think also as the season wanes, this offense is starting to develop its identity, a little bit more chemistry, to where you would say that the natural improvement is just going to happen because they've been on the field together, playing in these situations, going through these scenarios, and then finding the right solution every single time it comes up. So they always say in the league, never make the same mistake twice, right? So if that's the moniker, and if you go by that, then every single time you should make less mistakes, because how many times can you come up against making a mistake every single play? I mean, that's usually not the case. And you should learn from the last time you made a mistake to be better from that the next time. So, yes, they're playing better. That's the reason why you see over the last 4 games, Mason Rudolph only taking 6, not even 6 sacks. He's got 6 sacks completely, where Will Levis has had 15 with just one more game to show for that.
Yeah. The Titans have actually, going into that game last week, and again, they only gave up 1 sack. They had allowed the fewest sacks since week 4. So from that period from 4 to 8, that offensive line was clearly starting to find that continuity. And for the most part, it was Mason Rudolph back there. And I really quick question to you, Brad, is, part of it is the quarterback as well, and how they are performing and their tendencies. And so I'm just curious, do you see if Will Levis comes back in this weekend? Do you see that taking a step backwards? And let's also have to speak the reality of the situation too. Lloyd Cushenberry is no longer your center.
That will be an issue, because you have a guy that has the experience, and he also has good blocking ability up front. There's a reason why he was the starter and brought in as a free agent that was highly paid, because he's good, and his presence will be missed, okay? But if you also look at the production of Calvin Ridley as of lately, it just goes to show you the ball's coming out of the quarterback's hands, okay? And he's finding his right receivers, which helps in protection, but if the longer you hold the football, the more probability you have that you're going to get hit, because you just don't have all day back there in the pocket to try and find somebody. So like I said, the pocket has to give the quarterback enough time to do his job. The quarterback has to recognize what the defense is doing against him to take away his favorite read or his first read, and then finding that next guy efficiently enough to get the ball out of his hands. Sure. Guys have to get out of coverage and make themselves available too. You know what I mean? This isn't a situation where the play breaks down and like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, they can just go out there and run and do anything and something's going to happen. They don't have that kind of chemistry or that kind of makeup to be able to do that consistently. You can't rely on that. So you've got to have guys that can get themselves open, a quarterback that recognizes when they're open, how to get the ball to them in a fashion that allows them to be playmakers once they get it, and a line that also gives that quarterback enough time to find out what those situations are and how to handle it moving forward.
And it's fitting that you saw Nick Westbrook-Akine's touchdown catch on Sunday come when Mason Rudolph had time to go to his second read.
There you go.
So that's something that for Will Levis is really interesting to me, because Will Levis is throwing to his first guy the vast majority of the time. Mm-hmm. And it felt like at the beginning of the season, we could at least make the argument that, okay, yeah, it's hard to go to your second read when you don't have time to go to your second read. As this offensive line starts to play a little better, I think the expectation for Will Levis should be that his play should get better as well. Because, no, you don't have DeAndre Hopkins there anymore, but it's not like you're really using him while he was healthy anyway. While he was here.
Right.
He wasn't a part of this offense. He was getting out-snapped by Traylon Burks at the very beginning of the season. So that's not an excuse for Will Levis coming back. The excusers are starting to fall by the wayside a little bit more for Will. And Ramon made the point yesterday that he just wants to see Will stand in the pocket and just make throws. Like all this improvising, all the getting out of the pocket. His two big mistakes at the beginning of the season came when he's rolling out and trying to improvise off script. For me, if you're going to run out of the pocket, you might as well just tuck it and become a runner, because I don't trust Will to make the right decisions after the pocket collapses and he's got to run and get out.
Very few quarterbacks are effective outside of the pocket. Mm-hmm. There are a handful that can get it done. They can throw across their body, throw across to the opposite side, to the field or to the boundary and make a play. Very few can do that while on the run. That's why they're more consistent in the pocket. But like if the offense is playing better and they're giving Will or Mason just 1 or 2 more seconds, right? That's 1 or 2 more seconds for him to then find that next guy if they take the first guy away from him. I think, Will, what you're mentioning also shows a lack of trust in anybody else other than the first.
I was literally just going to tell you
exactly.
to say that.
Because if you think about it, he says, hey, look, this ball is designed by this play to go to that guy. I'm going to make it work. Sometimes when you pick a tool out of the toolbox and you go to work with it and you realize it's just not the right tool. I need to go get the better tool to make this project work easier. Or you can sit there and say, I'm going to make this dang tool work. It depends how many tools you have in that toolbox to be able to go to. Mm-hmm. I know there's a lot of T's in that situation, but you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. Sometimes you might need a Phillips screwdriver versus, a flathead screwdriver that you may have gotten the job done before, but it's so much easier if you use the Phillips screwdriver.
Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned kind of going to his first read, and we saw a couple of those interceptions were predetermined reads at that, with Will Levis, the mistakes that he was making. So, it's one thing to throw an interception sometimes, right? Because that's part of the game in certain situations. Sometimes you get a tip ball or something like that. But when you have a predetermined read and then you completely just don't even see the guy, like I feel like we've been again, the mistakes he's had, they've been questionable.
What happens is that Will is more predictable because he's still going to that first read.
Yes.
In other words, they're not throwing out the entire playbook from week to week and reinventing themselves and putting in entire new plays, are they? No. So the defense has, by and large, seen what he's already done in those situations and understands where he's going with the football and what he's trying to do. So in that way, they can anticipate that and make a break on the ball, or having recognized the formation and where Will's eyes are, exactly where he's going and what he's trying to do with the football.
The thing that's interesting, PFF actually has started to chart this season in terms of how often guys are going to their first reads, but also what their grade is when they do.
Okay.
And I think it tells an interesting story about Will Levis, who they say is throwing to his first read 68% of the time. That is not an overly large number. It's kind of, I think, it's towards the top of the league. It's not, though, the crazy outlier. For perspective, Daniel Jones is throwing to his first read 73% of the time. Anthony Richardson, 73% of the time. Andy Dalton, 71% of the time. So Trevor Lawrence, 74%. So again, he's not close to that top 5 or 6, but his grade when he does go to his first read, last in the NFL.
Yeah, that's not good.
29.9 is his PFF grade when he's throwing to his first read. For perspective, Lamar Jackson has a 90 grade when he's throwing to his first read, which is 56% of the time.
Yeah, is that guy also getting open? Is that guy, the obvious situation to go to because he's getting separation, because he's such a great route runner that he's almost indefensible and the ball can come out quickly, and then therefore the guy can make a play because Lamar trusts that he's going to be open, or is there a safety valve somewhere else? In other words, I would love my quarterback to have multiple options. So then that way the defense is trying to guess where I'm going with the football.
Right.
How many times do we see quarterbacks manipulate the pocket, manipulate the secondary with their eyes, but they're going over here. Mm-hmm. They're going over there.
But that's a skill that the more football you play, the more comfortable you feel to do that. And I just feel like, Will Levis at this point, not playing as much football as other quarterbacks in this league, he doesn't have that skill. And I don't know if he'll ever have that skill. You mentioned trusting your receivers, but also how much does Will Levis also have to completely trust his line? I think sometimes I don't feel like he has that trust with the guys up front.
There's a difference between watching the rush and watching the routes. You see what I'm saying? If you're getting hit enough, it's naturally for you to start looking at where am I about to get smacked from this time? You know what I'm saying? And I know that my clock has definitely sped up tremendously because I'm seeing a different colored jersey coming to knock me out, right? So I'm trying to get this ball out of my hands as soon as possible. And that might also dictate why he's going to that first read. I got to get this thing out of my hands because I don't have time to go to my second and third read.
Yep. Real quick on the special teams discussion we had, by the way, wrapping up hour 2. Zach Lyons did mention on illegal formation penalties called on kickoffs that 18 teams have been called for illegal formation penalties. So I made the point, why are the Titans the only ones being called for them? Fair to assume that if that many teams are being called for them, then there are other incorrect illegal formation penalties probably being called as well.
Yes.
So again, ask the question, and there's the answer. And doing more digging, it does feel like it's not just a Titans issue, although not being able to cover punts and the lack of hang time, that does feel more like a Titans issue. Coming up, NFL trade deadline 2024 is here. What does it mean for the Titans, and who could be moved today? We'll catch you up on the latest on the NFL trade deadline front coming up next.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson for my friends at WeGrowHair.com. And I have documented here on 104.5 The Zone my journey in terms of my hair growth. And it's coming along nicely. Almost over 4 months now that I look back at it. And I have been doing everything from their PRP platelet-rich plasma treatments that really offer you results in about 2 months to their FDA laser approved therapy that is easy. You go in there, it takes 30 minutes, you're out the door. And that has really helped me restore my hair. If you don't know this, it's a good thing to know. You can lose up to 50% of your hair before you even notice it. So walking in there, just taking the chance to give your true thoughts on your hair grow journey and what you would like it to be. They'll set up a personal plan for you to help you restore your hair. They've been doing it for over 30 years at We Grow Hair. They are Nashville's hair restoration premier medical clinic. So don't wait. Go to wegrowhair.com. You can schedule a free evaluation today or just simply call them 615-376-6010. That's 615-376-6010. Or go to wegrowhair.com and tell them Kayla sent you.
RKW, Ramon, Kayla, and Will continues on your Tuesday morning. Usually we catch up with Austin Price at this time. We'll do that tomorrow at 8:20. Looking forward to talking some college football and reacting to the NFL trade deadline tomorrow morning's show. 615-737-1045 is our number. We give the number because we want to hear from you. What would you do today if your name was Rand Carthon? NFL trade deadline, some Titans that may be shoppable, and a treasure trove of picks that could be added to. So today we've already seen Zadarius Smith go from the Browns to the Lions. Yesterday, as Bert has mentioned, Baron Browning, again, the price of an edge rusher. We kind of learned what that has been. Cardinals give up a 6th-round pick for the 2021 3rd-round pick out of Ohio State, Browning, who is on the move. Another running back traded Khalil Herbert to Cincinnati. But if your name was Rand Carthon today, are you making any trades? And if so, who?
Here's where I'm going to look at the situation. And I know we've spoke about Harold Landry, probably one of the more valuable pieces that you could actually see being traded today, just because there is always a need for a pass rusher in the league. But on the opposite side of him is a guy by the name of Arden Key, who has clearly turned it on as of late in the last few games. He has spoke to us about how he's kind of gone outside in terms of getting some help, and whatever he has done, it has clearly helped. And I mentioned earlier on in the show, it's always not just about what you have done over your career, but what you've done lately, right? That's always, it's always going to catch a team's eye. So I think if I were going to do anything right now, and I don't know how much you're necessarily going to be able to get for him in terms of a draft pick, but if there is a team willing to give you something for Arden Key right now, I say, why not do it? Because he's not a part of your future. And I still think Harold Landry, at 7 seasons with the Titans so far, is still and could still be a part of your future. He's still got a lot left in the tank. And again, there are still pieces you'd like to build around here. So my thing would be, if I want to trade anything right now that's not giving up too much, it would be probably Arden Key.
Brad?
I'm just not a proponent of getting rid of dudes right now, that have made a difference. And I understand that there could potentially be some star in the making in the future with draft equity that you get for a guy like that. But, to me, it's like there's nothing that's going to fix this year. And I understand it seems popular right now to look at dudes that do bring value that somebody else might be able to get some use out of, and then throw you something that, that could help you in the future. But for me, it's just like, hey, look, the dudes you have on the roster right now, they've gotten you to this point, especially midway through the season. And I just don't see change being such a dramatic thing that all of a sudden makes you feel better about who you are week to week. So,
and to add to that, I will say with Arden Key, I do feel like he has taken on with Jeff that leadership in that locker room. I know 2 games ago made a valiant effort in Detroit on the sideline, him and Jeffrey Simmons, to kind of try to rally the troops throughout the entire game, no matter what point they were, dealing with, whether it was, they were behind or ahead. So I do feel like he has made more of an effort to also be a leader on that defense this year, along with Jeffrey Simmons.
Right.
So maybe they see a lot of value in that. I know Brian Callahan has spoke highly of him at several times. So I'm not saying by any means that's the move they're going to make or they're going to make that move. I just think if I'm going to pick anybody, maybe that's the guy, because Quandre Diggs would have been the guy, but he's hurt now.
You're also talking to a dude that never left this franchise in 13 seasons. And I don't remember guys that we got either in those years that I was here that all of a sudden just came in, and made a difference, or guys that we traded away that were really, really good, and all of a sudden we got guys in return somewhere down the line that all of a sudden we're like, that made sense. For me, it's to make the connection, to make a roster feel complete. You understand and you have familiarity with the dudes that are around you. I talked to Delaney Walker yesterday on my podcast, and he was mentioning when he got here from San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Now, this wasn't a trade situation. It was him being a free agent, basically. and him leaving San Francisco and coming to a team that was really struggling, okay? And it was hard for him to kind of sequester who he is as a person as far as the energy and the message that he would bring outside of his own meeting room. Mm-hmm. In other words, he said that Craig, who's the big blocking tight end that we had back then? Craig Stevens, right. Yep. Craig Stevens wanted Delaney to be more outspoken to the offense and to the team. But Delaney didn't feel that he had that, the autonomy to be able to do that because he was a new face in the locker room. And a lot of times when you're struggling, it's easy for those positions to silo themselves and to just worry about farming their own land. But chemistry is created when you feel comfortable enough to kind of be outspoken and kind of be that voice, that says, hey, look, enough is enough. We need to start doing things the right way, Sure. And eventually he gained the confidence to kind of start speaking out.
He eventually got there,
eventually,
right? Yeah.
But he didn't feel that it was his place to do that.
It's a really interesting point, though. Very interesting point.
Especially when you're struggling, because it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to find those beacons that say, hey, look, follow me, fellas. I'm out here making all the plays and doing all the things that we need to do to win. You can be like me. And when you don't have that person that's doing that either by action or by voice, everyone's just kind of sitting on their hands, just being quiet.
So you say trade no one at this point?
Yeah, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone.
I'm trading Arden Key because his value has never been higher.
Give it to us.
Sacks in back-to-back weeks. I think you could get a 6th-round pick for Arden Key.
Wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
What'd you say, Bert? Arden's on line 1 to talk to Will?
No, so
he wanted to thank him.
That's right. And
where's he going?
To pull the curtain back a little bit, Bert and I were talking about it too, and I said, what do you think they could get? And we said the same number at the same time. 6th-round pick, I think, is realistic. So his salary increases by over $5 million to a total of $6.5 in 2025, but none of that money is guaranteed. So when you look at what the 2025 Titans could be in the future, Arden Key has the makings, not a guarantee he'd be gone, but has the makings of a cap casualty. Mm-hmm. A guy who is older, a guy who does not have guaranteed money as much as a Harold Landry would, who would cost you a lot more. You do have an out in his contract, but again, there's more of a price to pay with Harold and the way his contract works. I am striking while the iron's hot on Arden Key. That's the one move that I would do. I'm not trading Tyler Boyd because I want Will Levis to have more weapons in order to get a full evaluation of him. The only move I'm making is Arden Key.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to pop one out here for you guys. Chig Okonkwo.
I don't think his value's high at all right now.
Think you get anything for him? I know that's even much, something that I don't know what article I was reading, but it was one of the national sites, which does not mean anything. But it was interesting that they did put him on the list of like, okay, where are you taking this Chig Okonkwo? Like possible could be a
Did
trade
they say it like that, Kayla? This Chig Okonkwo. Where are they taking this guy?
Where are they taking that? Yeah. But somebody in the chat brought it up. So
I don't think you're getting much of anything off of him. Mm-hmm. To be honest
Especially,
with you.
What have you done for me lately type of conversation, that has been more so on the negative side than the positive.
Yep.
We'll give you a parking pass.
Can I throw a guy out there for you guys?
You may.
Yes.
Do it,
a guy that I've been seeing his name tossed around a lot, and it makes a lot of sense. He's on an expiring deal, Sebastian Joseph Day.
Yep.
A ton of teams need defensive line depth. A ton of teams need some help. Including the Patriots, who are not really in a position to add anybody, but Josina Anderson tweeted last week that the Patriots were snooping around wide receiver, offensive line, and defensive line trades. So if you could get something for him, would you trade it? And by something, I mean a 7th-round pick. If you get anything for Sebastian Joseph Day, would you send him off?
I certainly would be open to it. And again, as you mentioned, I mean, that's a guy who is 29 years old on a 1-year deal. Do you really think you're going to bring back a 30-year-old Sebastian Joseph Day at age 30, like I mentioned, next season? Probably not.
And he's been good. And if you're going to have your eye on anybody, in terms of maybe some of the sneaky guys around the league that you're keeping an eye on and the productivity that they've had, he's had that this season. He absolutely has. So if you can get something for him that is like, okay, yeah, we could do this, I'd say that's definitely a piece, Bert, because there's always guys or teams looking for that.
For what it's worth, he's on track to have the best year of his career.
That's
the most
wild.
sacks he's ever had is 3 sacks in a year. He has 2.5 already this year.
He's been good.
It's interesting. So at this point, it is hard to understand where exactly the Titans are, because I do think that the Hopkins trade didn't really signify fire sale, because they weren't really using Hopkins. Hopkins had value, but he was not a contributor on this offense. He didn't make you significantly worse. And then the Ernest Jones trade, it was well documented in the offseason how much they liked Jerome Baker. And they wanted to bring in Jerome Baker. They couldn't get a deal done with him. He goes to Seattle. So that one's a little unique, right? Because you are able to trade for a player you feel like could be a part of your future long term, but you also get value in the draft out of it by getting rid of Jones, and you add a pick there. So if we're answering the question, what would you do? Yes, I would say trading, but I don't think the Titans view this roster as fire sale mode maybe as much as the outside perspective says. I don't think they're going to make a move today.
I think that maybe I don't think the DeAndre Hopkins trade happens if they hadn't gotten Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd during the offseason. You know, I know that D-Hop does bring value because he's still one of the really, consistent receivers in the league and still can be a dynamic playmaker, as we saw last night. But I think that when you look at him coupled with the other new dudes that came in that are supposed to be explosive playmakers for this offense, it just seemed like he confused things.
I do too.
Which made him, more vulnerable to a trade. Because if this was the same situation that we saw last year before Ridley and Boyd got here, I don't think they're having this conversation about trading away DeAndre Hopkins, because he's their only option, really, as far as finding a dynamic playmaker that can help develop your quarterback.
Is it that too many cooks in the kitchen conversation in a way?
Well, first off, I think that when you hear Brian Callahan mention either it's to Calvin directly or even just speaking out loud saying, I need to get Calvin the ball more. You're either A, trying to hedge bad things happening about receivers saying, hey, look, what is my purpose here? Why did you give me all this money, but yet we don't see a lot coming my way as far as allowing me to be productive? Especially when we knew that Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins had a connection going back to the Atlanta game the year before.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if you take his pacifier away and make him use another pacifier, whether, it's Calvin or, somebody else in that offense, now it's like you're making good on what you were intending when you brought Calvin in here in the first place versus him still going to that same blanket. This is my blankie. I want my blankie. Not this new blankie. I don't want this new blankie.
Stop sucking your thumb, And that's the thing that I kind of saw this throughout the season. Ridley didn't have the numbers yet, or he was making those drops to prove this. But Mason Rudolph said it to us last week in the locker room when I asked him about Calvin Ridley and if he saw anything in that first game he had his breakout leading up to it that week of practice. He said, I'll just say this, Ridley is not a diva wide receiver. He came out and said that. And he said he puts in all the work you can even think about that a receiver would put in. And again, put in the tennis ball routine now with the tennis ball machine that he's working on, the hand-eye coordination. So if there's anything moving forward in terms of Will Levis and Calvin Ridley, to blame that on Calvin Ridley, I don't know if we can really do that at this point. They've got to find that, and we know Calvin Ridley does the work.
Let's just say Stephon Diggs was the guy that we got in here versus Calvin Ridley. And he was getting the same kind of attempts or lack thereof. There was going to be some fur flying in that locker room. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I think Chris Carter said it best a long time ago. He said receivers care about two things, their reps and their cash. But like you just mentioned, and I'm glad that you asked him that. But then we haven't had that scenario here where there is a dude that thinks about himself first and his lack of connection with what they're doing. Because D-Hop wasn't that guy either. He wasn't a dude that said, hey, look, you guys are failing to use me. You're trying to get this connection going with Calvin or anybody else.
Could he be could he have been in the ears of some of these guys? But I mean, we don't see that coming out in the media, obviously.
Oh, D-Hop?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think think about what he did, talking to J.C. Latham and, connecting with guys on the other side of the football. He was a team dude. He was an elder spokesperson because he'd been around for a while. He was a recognizable name to people coming in and out of the building. And I think he felt an innate responsibility to kind of be a voice of reason, regardless of what the situation was. He wasn't saying this is about me or, it's about, hey, look, you're not using me the right way. But we know that typically can be the case when you're talking about diva receivers that basically want their catches.
Yeah.
It is funny to me that we might live in a world where the Titans' most movable asset on offense is Nick Westbrook-Akine.
What?
Wow.
I mean, think about it. The most movable asset, the guy who's cheap on an expiring contract, who is producing on offense. Give me another player that's more movable right now than Nick Westbrook-Akine. I'm not insinuating they're going to, but if you're talking about on offense or defense, who is tradable for the Titans right now, it's NWI.
Yeah, and then we watch that guy go out and be a Pro Bowler on somebody else's team, then we turn our offense around and slap him right in the face.
NWI is wide receiver 2 right now.
Yeah, and he came on the show yesterday, which was excellent. But even he said, I hope that some of this work that I've done and the consistency that I've shown warrants more than just maybe a year extension. And not specifically talking, I just think that's fair.
Yeah.
Fair for him to say.
Especially with all these rentals in here.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's a space for him, I think.
Nick Westbrook-Akine needs to be kept around here beyond this season. What that guy has done to develop and turn into a legitimate option in your offense. There is a place for Nick Westbrook-Akine in this offense moving forward. The guy always answers the call. Mm-hmm. I just do think it's funny the amount of times that Titans fans have wanted to see less of NWI. To say that now, I mean, him and Tyler Boyd are like the only guys that you could really move on this offense.
Mm-hmm.
Duck Falling on the F&M Bank chat, he made a good comparison who Nick Westbrook-Akine is.
Oh, I just saw that.
And Derek Mason does make sense.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, listen, because Mace was a special teams dude that, first off, we knew that we were going to get good field position when this guy was back there fielding punts, right? Because he was just such a dynamic returner. But then when he started to become more of a stalwart in that offense, man, we knew we had a playmaker. But guess what? He wasn't a household name.
Sure.
Even when he came in here, he wasn't a household name. But he developed into one.
Yeah.
And it took him a few years for sure. But yeah, that's those are high expectations to say that NWI is going to turn into a guy that had but
look at where they were when they first came in.
I know, but
that's the point we're trying to make. He's making the point that there was relatively obscurity for Derek Mason until, guess what, he started making the plays in offense that made him be a name.
615-737-1045. Let's shift gears for a moment to the college football world as playoff rankings come out tonight. What is the one thing you are most interested to learn from the College Football Playoff Committee tonight as the made-for-TV rankings process begins? That's next. Hey, it's Will Bowling here from my friends at Whataburger. And if you know me, you know I love talking about how much I love Whataburger. Throughout their 74-year history, Whataburger's been known for quality and big flavor. Each and every Whataburger is still made to order when it's ordered with 100% fresh, never frozen, pure beef, and served up on a toasted 5-inch bun. The bread is fresh, delivered 5 days a week to the restaurants. Vegetables are cut daily. And that classic #1 with cheese, of course, Whataburger's best-selling item. The all-time favorites menu, including fan favorites like the Patty Melt and my personal favorite, the Honey Barbecue Chicken Strip Sandwich. Customers love making their Whataburger just like they like it, whether that's adding grilled onions and jalapenos, one of these signature sauces. There are literally thousands of ways that you can customize your Whataburger. With 16 Middle Tennessee locations around the area, they're open 24/7. 16. That's all the way from Clarksville to Murfreesboro. That's Whataburger, just like you like it. RKW 104.5 The Zone continues, wrapping up hour 3 this morning. College football playoff committee rankings out for the first time tonight. What are you most interested to learn in the college football world tonight?
What a great question.
Ooh.
How much does what the committee seen to this point line up with what, say, the national pundits say about who's the best, or because we've experienced a lot of teams that we thought were going to be really, really good, and they've experienced some lumps. But there's not real one definitive team that steps up and says, hey, we are the team to beat right now. You know what I mean? Because it seems like every other week there's a new number one or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see how much they align with what, the national media is saying as far as the committee's thoughts of the top 25.
Sure.
It's always a little bit different. And being an AP voter that votes week to week on these types of, and I'm just taking it from my perspective because I take it very seriously, right? And we're not perfect though. Like every single voter has a different mentality. Maybe some voters have spent a little more time watching the SEC. Maybe more voters maybe spend time more watching the Big Ten. When it's all said and done, we try to get it evenly as we can, but we're not perfect, and neither's the committee. But the committee, they look at things in a little bit different perspective, and there is always some difference, I feel like, when they begin their process of putting in their rankings. So I'm trying to pull up right now the rankings in terms of the AP this season. But what I will say is I think there'll be probably a little bit of change in the top 10 for sure. Because right now, I think everybody would agree that with an undefeated record, Oregon is probably the top team in the country. And I think that will remain. But where you go after that, you guys, in terms of Georgia, Ohio State, Miami still undefeated but hasn't played as tough a schedule as these other teams, right? Penn State, where will they be at 7-1? Will Tennessee be above them at 7-1? And so I think we're going to see some difference in the top 10, and that's what I'm most excited to see. How does their opinions differ from ours as AP voters in terms of who they think those top 10 teams are?
I think for me, it's how they treat the Big Ten outside of Oregon, because Indiana has played a very easy schedule. Penn State has played a very easy schedule and lost their one difficult game. So how do those two function within a one-loss Tennessee, a one-loss Texas, Alabama, who has got 2 losses, yet still will always be given the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise, because, again, they have crimson helmets with white numbers on them. So I think that's the interesting thing. I think Indiana is really an outlier and an interesting team in this. And the same could be said for BYU, who is undefeated, but again, they forced a lot of turnovers. They've lived dangerously. They've played some close games. I think there's an expectation they will regress back to the mean at some point, yet they still just keep on doing what they're doing this year. So ESPN.com and their projected bracket right now would have Tennessee seeded 8th, hosting Boise State in a first-round on-campus matchup in Neyland Stadium and getting Oregon if they were able to win that game.
Wow.
Boise State's no slouch either. No, they're not.
So those first-round matchups would be, how about this one? 5th seeded, not ranked, 5th seeded Ohio State hosting Alabama.
Ooh.
Would be a first-round matchup in this exercise. Tennessee, Boise State. Indiana going to Texas. I would argue that Texas is probably, a 10-point favorite in that game at least?
Probably.
Maybe 2-touchdown favorite. And then Penn State hosting Notre Dame.
Oh, my goodness. Look at that tradition.
Texas went up to Michigan and won, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just saying.
And
Michigan's down. They're down.
They don't even have an offense this year.
Yeah, they're down.
That's what I love about this. This could change, and it's going to change, right? In terms of as the season kind of starts to wrap up here. But to even get excited about, you're saying, these home field hosting situations in the playoffs, I don't even know how to explain how excited I am for these. I don't even care if I have a connection with those teams or not.
Yeah.
Even saying some of those in terms of, Tennessee hosting Boise State. I know not a traditional matchup by any means, but how fun. A Heisman candidate coming down in their running back and having to take on probably for the first time in a big environment like that, at least in the SEC. I think that would be really, really cool. So there's going to be so many neat home environments in the playoffs.
I just love the fact that there's more parity nowadays. You're getting, I know some people are just kind of, wherever they are as far as the transfer portal or the NIL situation or whatever, but you're starting to see talent more evenly distributed throughout college football. I mean, there was some boy on Ohio State's team that was at Alabama, and he transferred over, and he's sitting there making plays, helping them beat Penn State. You know what I mean? So it just kind of shows you that it does shrink, in other words, the level of expectation. You can't just say, well, they should win by 3 touchdowns nowadays. Well, shoot, even these smaller schools now are getting dudes, if you've got the treasure chest to be able to get your roster right, they can make plays too against bigger schools seemingly.
Well, and you're going to see firsthand, because if something like a Boise State and Ashton Genty comes down to Knoxville, and that guy has changed what Boise State is this year for sure. But can they do that on a stage like that, a program like that goes up against this competition every single week? It seems like that you don't necessarily get that in the Mountain West.
Coming up, there is a wide receiver on the move in the NFL. More breaking trade news that we will tell you about at the beginning of Hour 4. Plus, DeAndre Hopkins has commented on his quote-unquote shot at the Titans that people thought was a shot at the Titans. Got both those headlines for you coming up next.
What's going on? 9 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Monday Night Football last night. Baker Mayfield and the Bucs take the Chiefs to the limit, but don't even get a chance to touch the ball in overtime as the Chiefs take it 30-24. DeAndre Hopkins had a night, catching 8 passes for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. Chiefs remain undefeated while the Bucs fall to 4-5. Trade deadline day is here. Broncos got an early start yesterday, sending pass rusher Baron Browning to the Cardinals for a 6th-round pick. But some trades that have happened today, most recently, the Panthers acquiring wide receiver Jonathan Mingo, or the Panthers sending wide receiver Jonathan Mingo to the Cowboys. Dallas giving up a 4th-round pick and getting a 7th-round pick back. But the 2 trades we saw early this morning, Zadarius Smith getting sent from the Browns to the Lions, and Khalil Herbert going from the Bears to the Bengals. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Fourth and final hour and 9 a.m. in Nashville, Tennessee, as RKW continues. Ramon, Kayla, and Will with Brad Hopkins in for Ramon Foster. Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Robert Walsh, our producer. Jackson Williams in the control room as well. 615-737-1045. How you talk to us, as we will talk with Ron Slay. Coming up here in 20 minutes, our weekly Tuesday discussion with our 3HL and SEC Network teammates. DeAndre Hopkins has commented on his Remember the Titans celebration from last night.
Go.
So last night, if you missed it, he caught a touchdown pass from Patrick Mahomes and did the Remember the Titans dance. You know, like you're bend down like you're doing a false start, raise your hands in the air.
Do it, Will. Do it.
Shuffle through. Come on, like this. Mentioned after the game that it was one of his favorite movies. Well, many of you were offended by this, and I told you earlier in the show you shouldn't be, because when has DeAndre Hopkins ever disrespected the Titans, the organization? Heck, when he got traded, he said, I actually really appreciate Rand for trading me to a contender. He didn't have to do that. DeAndre Hopkins has tweeted 20 minutes ago, quote, "It was a shout out to Tennessee. If you know me, you know it's nothing but love for Nashville. Rand and his crew are like family. Without them, I wouldn't be here."
Well, there you
go.
go.
So Celebration Gate, finally put to rest.
I apologize, DeAndre Hopkins, for even, second guessing what it could be. I respect it, sir.
I remember when D-Hop was at the airport and they were making mention that he could possibly be joining the roster, and they were playing Tennessee Whiskey, Stapleton's song or
Yes,
whatever.
I love that song.
And I thought, it was on Twitter, and I thought that is so fitting. This dude, he loves being here. And just his connection with the roster, with the guys, and being one of the more outspoken people on a roster that really has been struggling, you could tell his emotional investment. He loves Nashville. He loved the city. I'm sure he loved his teammates that he was playing with. And despite him being on another roster and making plays and doing a lot of the things that we expect from D-Hop, he didn't forget that. And so I think that was a good, commemorative moment of the guys that he just kind of left in that foxhole. And he's in a better situation right now, but he didn't want to forget them.
He was emotional after the game, talking to the ESPN crew, like literally tears in his eyes, talk about what it's like to play with Patrick Mahomes. Imagine there are a lot of offensive players and defensive players who would feel the same way.
Yeah, because
they were traded to Kansas City.
Why? Because he got a life preserver?
Well, he's got one of the best quarterbacks of all time throwing the football.
And look, it was like a situation when he was in Houston. At some point, it did seem like, oh, this could be a team that you could see, and then it all just fell apart. And then we all know what happened, right? They traded away everybody. Gave away everybody, and then from there it was kind of, he was a little bit of a journeyman. So now it seems like maybe he could end his career or kind of wrap up his career, possibly getting a Super Bowl. So we'll see.
A trade between the Dallas Cowboys and the Carolina Panthers this morning. The Cowboys are getting wide receiver Jonathan Mingo and a 7th-round pick from Carolina for a 4th-round pick.
Wow.
Oh,
Man.
really?
Former Ole Miss wide receiver. We saw him in the Senior Bowl a couple years ago. Second-year guy out of Ole Miss.
That's a that's a big pick for sending over to the Panthers. I mean, I know I've got to look up the stats on Jonathan Mingo, but he hasn't been that crazy good, has he?
This season, Jonathan Mingo has 26 targets. He has 12 catches for 121 yards. Last year, he had 418 yards.
Okay.
Fourth round pick seems a little steep there.
Holy smokes, fourth round?
And Jerry Jones actually did just do his weekly radio interview because that's something he does in Dallas. And
What did he say?
he intimated this trade would be happening before it was announced and said, we're actually about to trade for a wide receiver today that we've really liked since the draft.
Okay. Well, if they think they can make him better than what he has been, then be at that. But Dak Prescott's hurt too, so it's not
Is
like
CeeDee Lamb hurt?
Yeah, but they don't know how serious. I've heard he could even play. It's a sprained shoulder. I heard he might play Sunday. I don't know though. That's a weird one to me. Sorry, that's a head thumper.
So a seventh and Mingo for a fourth next year.
Where are the Cowboys at right now? Are they still in the hunt?
Well, I think most teams with the profile of the Cowboys right now would be sellers. But at this point in his life and career, Jerry Jones ain't selling ever. I mean, the expectation in Dallas is to compete every single year. That's just the way things work. And he, on his radio interview a little bit ago, just said, yeah, we're not sellers. We're looking to add.
Dude,
Good luck with that.
this is weird, you guys. And I'm sorry, I can't get over this Mingo trade thing because even just looking at his season so far this year, I mean, he's never even gone over 50 yards receiving.
121 yards total.
Yeah.
In 9 games.
Yeah, but that's also, look where he was at. So, I think that maybe when they were looking, like he said, Jerry did touch on why they thought that this would be effective because they liked Mingo.
Yeah.
When they were scouting him before.
Who's throwing to him right now for the
Cooper Rush.
Yeah. And they do like him as a back. Yeah.
Jonathan Mingo tested exceptionally well at the NFL Combine. Had a 9.86 relative athletic score, 4.48 40 with a 2.56 20-yard split. He was listed at 6'1", 220 and had 39.5-inch vertical jump. Like, he is an athlete that they feel like fits the profile of what they want. I mean, he was compared so much to A.J. Brown coming out of Ole Miss simply because he is a big physical wide receiver who played obviously in the same uniform as A.J.
And Jerry likes physical.
And you know what else Jerry likes? Likes to fix people. We talk about this all the time in this league. How fixable is a guy? We've even had this conversation about Treylon Burks if he were to have gone somewhere. Maybe it's because somebody, a team wants to pick him up and try to fix him. And I feel like the Cowboys are one of those types of teams that they'll take some big names, but also take guys in terms of Jerry Jones. We can fix him.
Yeah, but if Jerry's listening to his scouting department, they're saying, hey, look, man, this dude right here, we could have taken a flyer on for sure, and now he's available to us. Let's see if he can help us at this point where we don't know how healthy or not CeeDee Lamb is. You know what I mean? And, they've had their own issues. I would say in a lot of instances, the other side of the football does have an effect on what the offense is able to do because they couldn't stop anybody, which makes the offense have to respond every single time they're on the field.
It's just crazy to put your quarterback on IR, which is about to happen with Dak Prescott, yet add a wide receiver.
Yep.
Yeah, but it also shows you what they feel about Cooper Rush.
I guess.
Yeah, I guess too. It is weird though.
Maybe you can
rush
not
value.
They're not a playoff team. The Cowboys.
Not looking around the division with Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts is playing better, and I'm not going to say anything about the Giants, but still,
That is the other thing tricky. I know you brought up Washington. Tricky about where the Titans are right now with their schedule. It just feels like you kind of, in order to really gain momentum and feel good about yourself going through the month of November, you kind of need to win Sunday because look at who's coming up after that.
Vikings.
Minnesota comes to town. You go to Houston. You go to Washington. This was not expected to be a significantly challenging part of the schedule. Minnesota's resurgence and Washington's resurgence has made this a gauntlet of a 4 games again. You kind of break up the season that way in quarters a little bit, or the 17th game changes that arithmetic a little bit, but this month of November was supposed to be pretty easy.
You're right.
It is anything but easy.
Yeah, because
Go
again, the Vikings, I had them last in their division coming into the year because of JJ being
McCarthy,
hurt.
yeah.
And then, with Washington, I liked Jaden Daniels, but I didn't think it would be to this level.
Well, it's a good time to catch the Chargers because I don't think that Justin Herbert is
That debate continues.
Right, feeling who he is or what he's supposed to be.
When has he really to full potential?
Then again, they can feel that same kind of pressure. Hey, look, we got to get these Titan team that's only won 2 games.
A lot of former Titans over there on defense.
See?
Christian Fulton revenge game
Yeah, Elijah Molden over there.
against the Titans this weekend.
Yeah.
I wonder if he'll do a Remember the Titans dance.
Yeah, I think that would be
that
a
might be
different
more of an
message.
insult. Yeah.
If one of those guys have a Remember the Titans
Right.
dance against the Titans on Sunday. Crazy. One thing I thought was interesting, a note from Brian Callahan's press conference we had not mentioned yet today, and I mentioned it because somebody in the F&M Bank chat, which is open, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, had mentioned this morning, geez, we trade Ernest Jones, we got Slowpoke Gibbons out there. Jack Gibbons quietly is kind of playing well when his number's been called. Brian Callahan mentioned yesterday he actually played so well on Sunday, he kept new inside linebacker Jerome Baker off the field.
Yeah.
And Jack has seen an opportunity and kind of taken it.
Jack
so
is
far.
graded out. Real quick, Jack graded out actually, and I know PFF is not the everything, but he has graded out as the Titans' best performer in the last 2 weeks.
90.6 in Detroit and an 85.4 Pro Football Focus grade. They seem to really like the job that he's done the last 2 weeks.
Should you be surprised, though? Because that's the kind of preseason he was having.
I'm a little bit
surprised.
surprised. Just in fact, they loved Jerome Baker so much that they were trying to get him here as a free agent, and they even said that again. Part of the reason why they sent Ernest Jones up there, and yet he still can't get on the field because how do you take Jack Gibbons off right now?
Playing well, making it a difficult decision. So we'll see. Coming up, Ron Slay. Tuesdays at 9:20, we go on our sleigh ride here on RKW, and he will join us coming up next. Hey, what's going on? It is Will Bowling. Listen closely as this affects pretty much everyone. By age 30, 50% of our master cells are dormant, and by 60, 90% are. Introducing the most advanced, multi-patented, non-invasive, and affordable technology in the form of a wearable patch that kind of looks like a Band-Aid. It's small, it's easy to hide, and when the patches activate, the body heals itself. There's no drugs, no chemicals. It's body heat and light activation only, and people are talking about having more energy, better sleep, relief from everyday pains, chronic migraines, and more. Your energy levels increase, sugar levels down. You could even see pain in a certain area like shoulder pain, back pain leave after just 5 days. Results vary, but most experience excellent outcomes with energy, better sleep, pain relief, and more. To learn more, go to ourlivewave.com. That's LIVEWAVE, ourlivewave.com. And for quickest response, just text PATCH to 855-600-WAVE. That's PATCH to 855-600-9283, 855-600-9283. RKW continues here in hour 4 this morning. Brad Hopkins filling in for Ramon. Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, Jackson Williams hitting all the right buttons the rest of the way for us this morning. Going to be joined by Ron Slay coming up here in just a moment. Saw a tweet just now from Titans fan writer saying, well, if Jonathan Mingo can be moved, so can Traylon Burks.
True.
What would you give for Traylon Burks, Will?
A bag of footballs.
I mean, if he was
Right
going
now.
to the Cowboys, I guess he would have gotten maybe a 4th-round pick.
Bag of footballs.
It's JT Runke, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing last name, who said that on Twitter. It's funny. I mean, Traylon Burks not healthy, so obviously you can't move him right now, but I don't think you'd get any more than a pick swap and maybe a 6 or a 7.
They just
Back
really,
for Traylon.
that's wild. They must have really just loved Jonathan Mingo. And again, you said they liked him in the draft process, but
Apparently.
my goodness, it's not like he's proven much.
Yep.
Yikes.
So there you go. That is the most recent trade in the NFL this morning. Zadarius Smith going to the Detroit Lions. Could be taking them off the market for another edge rusher or defensive end. So that is the move that they have made. Baron Browning yesterday at the Cardinals. The defensive moves made so far. Joining us this morning on the phones, 3HL and SEC Network superstar Ron Slay. Slay, good morning. How are you?
Well, good people. How y'all doing, man?
What's up, Slay Dog?
We are good. It's that time of the year, Slay, where we got a little bit of whiplash. We got college hoops to watch during the week. We've got college football on Saturdays. Of course, we've got the NFL on Sundays. Let's start, though, with the Titans, because on NFL trade deadline days, Slay, are you, if you're putting yourself in Rand Carthon's shoes, making any moves this afternoon?
I'm not forcefully making any moves, but I am openly hearing. And my phone, I may even have 2 phones open today, so no phones will be busy when they call in, kind of like the zone outline with people trying to win prizes.
Yeah.
So it's always something to be heard. Now, if it's enticing enough for you to make a move, you push the button. If not, you keep on moving, man, and you wait for, the off season, and we'll get some things done.
Yeah, that's a situation that we're in, Slay, where we are basically sellers and not buyers. Because if you're a buyer, you're looking to improve your roster because you think you have a chance, right? Well, we know that right now, draft equity may be the best situation. Looking towards the future might be what's best for this team because, if they were broke, if it weren't broke, of course, it wouldn't need fixing. But this thing has been severely shattered at this point.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Biab. It's one thing to be looking to buy, you know what I'm saying, and you got one piece that you're trying to get there.
Right.
You know it's going to make a hell of a difference. We're going to make a playoff push or whatever it may be. You got a lot of holes right here. Now, I think one of the only ways you can get back is through the draft. That's why I think it's difficult to understand that when you come into the season, you start to invest. And then when the season arrives, you start to look at what you invested. And you look at the roster and you're like, man, we could have had so much go right. But at the same exact time, you can't go back and move the goalposts. That was my thing. When we started in the offseason, we were saying, man, it's going to take 2 years to kind of, put these gaps in where you got so much space that needs to be filled. But when we started looking at that roster, it was like, if we can do this, and if the O-line does this, and if the quarterback is who we think he is, and you have to go back to it, and if you answer those questions, one of them is yes. That defense came to play, but now they're banged up. We knew the depth was going to be a problem. We wondered if the O-line could get right. You're still having problems with the right tackle. Now, they have gotten better throughout the season. And then all of it came on the shoulders of Will Levis. If he is who we think he can be, then we're really going to thrive. That hasn't turned out to be what it is. So no need moving the goalposts. It is what it is, and we knew what it was. So keep it just like that, and you have to move on and just try to stockpile draft picks and go make some corrections during the draft. That'll be 2 years in the draft. Really, you say 2.5, but we don't know what was going on in year 1 with Vrabel and Rand and everybody in the front office management. So we'll see from this point on.
You know what, Slay, one thing we don't talk a lot about is the peril that comes sometimes when you're that dude that gets traded and the expectation that comes along with you. Let's take New York, for instance, when they traded for Devontae Adams and they brought him in here to be coupled with, Aaron Rodgers, who they've had a lot of success, and it's not necessarily working out. What that does is it has the possibility of affecting your legacy of sorts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, we know who Devontae Adams is. I mean, he's still a really good player. But there is that possibility that you moving to another team, you don't give them that expectation, and it doesn't work out for you, and you end up with egg on your face. We don't talk about that a lot.
Yeah, we don't, and it looks crazier because not only did you go to a situation that you wanted to go to, but the person at the helm was a Hall of Fame quarterback that was also given everything he wanted from the coaching staff to players, being able to get coaches. I ain't gonna say he got him gone, but allegedly it looked like he was able to, at least stamp it to get Saleh gone out of New York. So it's interesting. But then you turn to the other page and you talk about adding a block. You always said it, DeAndre Hopkins, that's a block. That's a piece for Kansas City that was already rolling regardless. So when you adding something to get over the hump, a system in place, they understand how that foundation is laid and they know what it is, that's totally different than them trying to put it all together in New York and then trying to force feed a situation. So I'm right there with you, B-Up.
Slay, I am going to make you pick something, though. I mean, you're not going to get away that easy. That's right. If you're going to have to do something in terms of a trade, right, you had to make one. Who has the most value at this moment right now for the Titans that would still, that would make sense in terms of the contract and everything?
Well, I'm not ever going to trade one of my foundational pieces. I'm just not, especially when you got length on it. So I think the person with the most value would probably be Big Jeff, but that's for me, either him or Harold Landry. I think that's some of your mainstays, though. If you're trying to grow, or if you do break it down all the way to scratch, and you just got a foundational piece, like I'm still trying to build around Big Jeff. So I don't. Honestly, I don't think you have any value in anyone outside of him to make you be able to go get something that you can say, all right, now this piece that we just traded away, we're going to get two pieces, be able to develop them, and move from there. I still don't think you get a first-round pick for a Big Jeff. I wouldn't do that if I was somebody, especially knowing how desperate the Titans are. So that'll be the only one. So other than that, I'm definitely not looking to get rid of anyone.
3HL's Ron Slay with us here this morning on RKW. Slay, shifting gears. In Knoxville, Tennessee on Saturday night, you were in the building for another incredible environment, incredible crowd, a Tennessee game that followed the similar script of a slower first half and a great second half. A slower first half, I say, because Nico Iamaleava maybe played his best game in a Tennessee uniform. Now he's got to get a little bit of help from his wide receivers when the ball is thrown right at them. What stood out, Slay, and how much confidence do you still have that this thing is going to click for the Vols on offense sooner rather than later?
Man, I still have confidence in it. And the reason I have the confidence is because who your opponents are before you go get to the mainstay in Georgia. Like, we come out of that Alabama game, and you're hoping you can carry over what Nico was able to do in that second half of that game as far as being able to connect to people. And he was. Like, he actually put it in the bucket, put it in people's stomach, put it on target, used his legs the right way. Like, everything was working. So now, like you said, you got to get help. And you got these guys, man, that have been asking to get their opportunity, and they got to come up with it. The only one that's been delivering is Brew, honestly, consistently. Dante Thornton when given the opportunity, but he needs to get healthy. I wouldn't be opposed to sitting him out Mississippi State game and, bringing him back to Georgia game and letting him just run wild. So other than that, I think, man, the offensive line was better. Nico's gotten a better feel for his tackles when they're not going to be able to block his seams. I think John Campbell's done a great job. That last hurt, man, that time off hurt. I think you got to get back to it. But one thing that makes up for that is the running style of Dylan Sampson. He can, his yards after contact and being able to make the first guy miss is something else. So I like it, and I think it can connect. What we always able to lean on is the defense. So if they continue to make plays the way they are, and I don't even think they played their best game, and still was able to go out and do what they do. I think it's going to be all a culmination, hopefully, and this is the fan in me as well, too, a culmination when it gets to Georgia and you get to see great on great, from the Georgia experience versus Tennessee experience. I think the tip that I give that looking ahead already is I don't trust Carson Beck at this moment. I do trust Nico.
Amen.
Right.
Amen, Ron. You're on that board with me. I call him erratic. Is what I call him.
KK, I've been saying it for 3 weeks. And you just watching him, he will give you one.
Yep.
Now it's always different for quarterbacks that like to gunsling when they play from behind. He always looks great playing from behind, and it erases what he did in the first half, and you like, man, Carson can really throw it, and then he'll come back out.
Yep.
First quarter, second quarter, throw it away, but that defense always holds long enough, kind of in the situation where Tennessee was. But the running game isn't as potent to me as Tennessee is, so they're really not ever able to change the size of the field the way it's supposed to. They just kind of strangle you out. So I'm going to be interested to see what Carson Beck can do this next week.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why Carson Beck is struggling, because of that run game you mentioning not being on par like it normally is. But I will say that Josh Heupel in Tennessee have done a good job of living up to expectation. When Nico Iamaleava was actually, talked about coming and being a part of this offense, there was a buzz, there was an excitement. Remember, going back even to last year when the bowl game came around about who should start, right? But what they've done is they've gotten the best shot from everybody they played against because of that expectation, and they basically made good in most instances about living up to that expectation.
That's right, B-Hop. And then I think one thing that's recognized by Josh Heupel and his staff that we as fans are not recognizing just because of the expectations and just because of the explosive plays that we love to see, this team has their own identity. When you look at the Vols, their identity is, man, our defense is going to stand up. You can really go with that bend but don't break mentality. And offensively, until the explosive plays are there, the explosive play is the run game. So it is the fact that 6 yards run, a 2-yard screen to a receiver, you get 3 yards, you move the chains on the next play, and you continue to chip away. Every time they've come out and forcefully fed Dylan Sampson, that game has turned around. And then you start to see even the extension of that is the tight ends getting involved even more. So I think that right there, man, this isn't that Cedric Tillman, Velus Jones, Jalen Hyatt type of offense right now. Do they have the weapons to do that? Absolutely. Have they been connected on it? No. But it hasn't shot them in the foot yet because outside of us watching it as fans, they know what their identity is.
Sure.
Let's get back to the run. Let's point this ball away. Defense will get a stop. We'll come out and reset again and try to get it going and then get in our groove. So, man, I think we have to accept that. It's not going to be the 2022 or 2021 when you playing against Kentucky and you scoring in 7 seconds from the 20-yard line, coming back and getting it again, doing the exact same thing. It's going to be a little bit more methodical. It's going to be a little bit more 9-play drives, 12-play drives, and eating up clock and playing that way and expecting your defense to carry you. The one thing I will say that hasn't been normal for Tennessee is the special teams. Usually, like you saw first couple of games, special teams get the explosive plays. If we can see that on the back end, this could be dangerous.
Going on a sleigh ride here as we do every Tuesday on RKW with Ron Slay. I did want to bring up the drops in terms of some of the wide receivers. Not even, that's not helping Nico Iamaleava in any way. But how can this be fixed? And does it take just, a game to get in sync or give those individual guys the confidence?
Yeah, I think it's that number getting called, but it can't be at the detriment of the team. So if we got the offense rolling and you getting some consistency, you may get your number called, but we can't come out. And I say we like I'm out there playing, but we as in Tennessee can't come out and play like, okay, we're going to go 3 passing plays right here. No, let's not do that. Let's see if it get to flowing. See if guys get to working. I think right now you saw in the drive with Brew when he had 2 straight catches and yards after catch, breaking tackles. You know who has the rhythm, so you can continue to go to Brew. After that, let's go back to Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
You saw what your tight ends are going to do. So you don't want to have guys out there frozen, but you also want to ask them too in the film room. Hey man, is it about you or are you willing to do other things to get other guys involved as well? You saw Mike Matthews, they put a clip on social media with him out there blocking for Squirrel White.
Yeah.
And enjoying it. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing you got to get bought into. You want to buy into success and everybody feeling that way, the way everybody puts Dylan Sampson into the end zone, or do you want us to continue to go to you down the field 30 yards down and give you an opportunity where it's a 50-50 ball, and if you don't come up with it, all right, we come back to it, but the rhythm is stopped. It's about getting the rhythm. I promise you, if you do, I'm sure you can speak to this, if you do what you're supposed to do in the rhythm of the game, you're going to get the breaks. It's one of the maxims.
Yeah, that's right.
Just do what you're supposed to do. You'll get your break, I can guarantee it.
Absolutely. You're right about that 100%. Hey, you know what, Slay? What do you think about the respectability that the Vols have had so far in the SEC? You know, with all this NIL stuff, with transfers and people coming in, it seems like they've figured out the formula to at least be competitive. Now, I know some programs are down. Some people say Georgia's down, Alabama's down, and that might lend to the opportunity for Tennessee to step up into that realm. But it seems like that was going to be the trajectory anyway.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think if it's done right, in which everybody was on the same board, going the same path, pulling in the same direction. With those other schools, Alabama and Georgia, like it was overloaded. it was in a sense overloaded, and it was like, hey man, golly, people came up for air and looked around and said, oh, other schools are doing stuff too. Look at Tennessee up here. Like, look at Oregon over here. Like, look at Ohio State. All right, look, let's go see what they can do. And people bolted. So it kind of evened it out. And then I think the main thing is Tennessee's been able to retain people more so than not. Like with guys bolting. And I think it's the atmosphere, honestly. Yeah. Like when things are going good all around it's never a dull moment. Like you don't necessarily have to wait after football to be like, all right, we're going to wait till the off season, wait till April, wait till May, wait till the transfer portal open to try to see where the excitement is. It actually spills over to basketball. And that same energy you get from football, you getting right there in Thompson Bowling. Then baseball comes. So during that draft period, it's like, what are we going to do? Where do we go? It's a spotlight still put on the campus from the national media, the local media, NIL trickling down. Man, I watched Channel 4 Sunday, and dog, they were showing a Knoxville. I forgot the show they show, the sports show they show, but they ran the Knoxville commercials. Man, I ain't never seen nothing like this in my life. It was players on every single commercial. Hey, man, my mind was blown. Like, good God, man, the NIL is beyond booming. Like, I saw Stir the Pearl. Stir the Pearl has the NIL just getting commercials. I'm like, what are we doing in Nashville, man?
That's crazy.
Vandy got to get on top of where Vandy is right now. They're supposed to be on Channel 2, Channel 5. And Pavia is supposed to be on at least 3 commercials a day, man.
Some airtime, right?
Yeah, man, this is ridiculous. And I know it's because we're not in Knoxville, we don't see it. That was just one station, one show. I can't imagine what's going on throughout the day. So, man,
hey, Vandy's quarterback needs a Mayo commercial, man.
No.
Let's keep him away from Mayo. Let's get him some mustard or some Miracle Whip or something. Yeah, well.
No.
It's typically not a good omen.
It seems like Pavia may be going the tequila route or something anyway, the way he want to turn that.
Slay, before we wrap up with you this morning, there's a little bit of Titans news we'll get to here in a minute. But before we wrap up with you, Slay, Tennessee basketball gets the win over Gardner-Webb last night. Chaz Lanier with 18 points. Jemai Meshack proving what Rick Barnes has said all offseason, that he's been the most consistent three-point shooter. Another game for him with multiple threes made. I think his 4th time in his career that has happened. What was your main takeaway from Tennessee's opener last night?
My main thing was the backcourt was who I thought they were going to be. I don't think there's anybody in the nation being able to pressure the ball the way Meshack and Zakai do. They are past Gardner Webb, couldn't run their offense close to the 3-point line. I do think with this team you're going to figure out how to finish. And that's the finishing is the easy buckets offensively. They got to get an inside presence. The big fella Felix, they give him the ball down there. It's just not polished enough. It seems like he's rushing, but they got to find a way to get some easy buckets for him or Milich or Estrella. Yeah. Whoever comes in, you got to get at least 8 points down low because it staggers that run when you're being countered and you're missing those threes. Of course, you're getting stops. That's always going to be something. But if you can't get the easy buckets, whatever you do, but defensively by getting stops, you got to push pace and get some easy layups in transition. But other than that, I'm fine with everything they showed yesterday, man.
Ron Slay at 3HL Tuesdays here on RKW. You'll see him a lot more on your television sets as well as the college basketball season gets started. Slay, thank you, sir. Good to catch up with you.
See you, Slay.
No doubt. Friday, man. Friday, Ole Miss, baby. I got Grambling State and Ole Miss.
Nice.
Y'all tune in, baby. Tune in.
I love it. We'll be there.
All right.
There he is, Ron Slay, with us this morning here talking some Vols and Titans. Coming up, there is a developing story from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler on 2 players the Titans are receiving calls about. That's next.
Is your concrete in need of repair? Maybe your sidewalk is shifting, your driveway is cracked or sinking, or porch steps have moved on you. Shifting concrete can create a dangerous situation, trip hazard around your home. It's a big eyesore is what it is. And it's Ramon Foster. I'm here to tell you, whatever is going on with your concrete, call United Structural Systems. Ask them about their polyurethane foam injections. That's right. You've heard about USS for a very long time, and the same company has provided superior foundation repair and waterproofing to Middle Tennessee since 1994. Well, they can also fix your sunken or settling concrete. USS uses polyurethane foam injections to lift and repair your sinking concrete in a matter of minutes. Lifted concrete can be walked on immediately and even driven on after 30 minutes. So don't go through the long, expensive process of ripping out and replacing concrete. Call USS at 615-488-7855. That's 615-488-7855 or online at USSTN.com.
RKW 104.5 The Zone continues here in the fourth and final hour. Well, what happened?
We got a remix going. We got DJ.
Jackson Williams is in for Robert Walsh this last hour. What just happened?
Jackson
It was all
Williams.
the cart was super delayed in playing. I played another song,
goodness.
and then it started going.
I mean, I thought you were literally getting ready to DJ for a
Unbelievable.
wedding tonight. I love it.
A wedding on a Tuesday night.
I mean, if it's football season, I guess it makes sense, right?
Don't
Gonna
want
miss Max.
to waste the weekend for some nuptials, huh?
Sure. Jeremy Fowler this morning has updated us on the status of the Titans at the NFL trade deadline, which of course is this afternoon. Writing on Twitter 15 minutes ago, quote, Titans have received inquiries on defensive line players, including Arden Key and Sebastian Joseph Day, per sources. Nothing had materialized as of this morning, but could be one to watch if a team steps up with a strong offer.
Yeah.
Again, that is ESPN's Jeremy Fowler saying Arden Key and Sebastian Joseph Day have been inquired about.
And I did some digging in the break just when that came up. And in terms of maybe just a couple landing spots, an interest in a defensive tackle like Sebastian Joseph Day. He spent most of his career on the West Coast with two teams in the NFC West, in the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. I think it would make sense. Arizona Cardinals still in the mix in a weird NFC West this season where everything is up for grabs right now. I could see them being interested in him. They do need an upgrade at defensive tackle, so that could be a thing. Also, Atlanta Falcons looking for a defensive tackle. As for Arden Key, there's always teams looking for pass rushers. I mean, even the Baltimore Ravens are one of those teams.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there may be the same type of interest that Seattle had in Ernest Jones, a guy like you just mentioned, who'd been in the West, who understood playing against those offenses out there. What a difference that he can make immediately. He would be a plug-and-play type player.
Didn't
and he
your
has to
son
make
Bryson play with him
He
with
did.
the Rams?
Yeah, Sebastian and Bryson won a Super Bowl together.
Yeah.
So, he understands exactly what it is to play against the Cardinals and the Niners and the Seahawks, and that will be easier for them to kind of make those adjustments and get him going immediately.
Yeah, I would imagine Arden Key, you are looking at a 5th or 6th round pick. I think maybe the trade deadline premium, especially if you're willing to pay a lot of his remaining salary, you could maybe make that work for a 5th round pick. And Sebastian Joseph Day, I think you're looking at more of a 6 or 7.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. Or maybe you send a 7 and Joseph Day for a 5 or a 6 or something like that. But I don't see you getting a whole lot more than late day 3 for Sebastian Joseph Day specifically.
I'll tell you though, Rand has done a good job in terms of, when it comes to some of these picks they're getting back. And I think the Ernest Jones thing was the perfect example of kind of really getting the most bang for your buck in that situation. So I never underestimate him in terms of what he can do with wheeling and dealing. But yeah, I think you're right on kind of some of those picks.
I do think the tricky part of that though too is that Jonathan Mingo just went for a 4th round pick and you only got a 5th for DeAndre Hopkins.
That's why. Yeah, that's true.
Now-
but then again,
I think that's more to be fair, that says more about Dallas to me than it does the Titans because like Amari Cooper was a 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Mingo was a 4th.
Jerry Jones is losing it. Sorry.
I just think he's so desperate. They are so desperate. And I'm telling you, I've said it so many times. At this point in Jerry Jones's life,
yeah,
you don't know how much longer. I'm not going to say on this earth. That's pretty
Oh my gosh! I thought that's exactly where you were
all I'm
going.
saying
Good
is,
gosh.
I don't think he is planning on being the guy in charge forever.
right.
Like Jerry Jones's years as the guy in charge of the Cowboys. Like, how much longer can he really continue to be this involved?
Don't take away the Cowboys from Jerry because then he will die. You see?
He's got Whataburger still.
I'm
That's
not
his second
trying
love.
to kill him off, but I'm saying in
It
general.
sounds like you're taking away the one thing that he's
he
loved.
is so old. Like, he's
He
not
is
going to be
old.
the GM and the president and everything forever.
Yeah, Jerry's up there. That's for sure.
Crazy. That is the show. Brad, appreciate you, Casey, as always.
Thanks, Brad. That was fun.
See you Friday, Will.
We will be back at it tomorrow morning. We will have Stephen Godfrey, college football expert, talking college football with us. We will have Austin Price at 8:20. We'll have Rhett Bryan, Inky Johnson. You can join me tonight for some Lady Vols hoops. I'm off to Knoxville to call the first game of the Kim Caldwell era
go.
tonight on SEC Network Plus. Looking forward to that. We will talk to you tomorrow morning here on RKW.